at a restaurant in Texas where no one recognises him. The Lionesses will refuse to take the knee prior to their Euro semi-final with Italy, claiming the gestures lost its impact. Yesterday, Jess Carter, the centre-back, revealed she'd been targeted with racial abuse on social media and she's leaving all platforms. Eddie Jones says the Wallabies have to make the game more unstructured from the get-go if they're to have any hope against the Lions in the second test at Melbourne. His favourite non-biological son, Owen Farrell, will captain the midweek side tomorrow, and Eddie says he'll be the perfect man for the job.
He's played 100 tests, scored the second most points for England. You know, he'll enjoy that opportunity to keep the Lions on the front foot during the tour, because for those guys who haven't played in the first test, for them to have a good performance in that game will make them feel like they're still contributing to the tour, and I think that's going to be pretty important.
Correction, Eddie. Farrell is England's #1 point scorer of all time after surpassing Wilkinson's tally at the last World Cup. And after making Daniel Dubois look non-league at Wembley on Saturday, Alexander Usyk has got to rank in the all-time top 10. That's the view of Fight Night presenter Adam Cattrall.
I know that there's other champions out there in the modern day that are stepping up in weight and doing multi-weight championships. But if you think about it, the gap between cruiserweight and who he's fighting is absolutely gigantic. Cruiserweight limit is 200 pounds. He's now fighting guys at 260, 270. And he's not just beating them once. He's then going back and beating them more conclusively a second time.
Yeah.
And again, he's still doing it all the way from home.
Listen to comprehensive analysis on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel.
Hello, very good morning to you. It's Sam Matterface on talkSPORT alongside Simon Jordan and the former Queen's Park Rangers, Crystal Palace, Sheffield United manager and many others. Neil Warnock's in the studio this morning live on talkSPORT. So Scotty Scheffler breezed to another major triumph, this time at the Open. But would he have gone to bed last night asking, what was all that about? Do his pre-tournament comments make any more or less sense after the weekend? Meanwhile, after Alexander Usyk scored Daniel Dubois at Wembley on Saturday night, how do you continue to progress when you've dominated the division? And how does Dubois rise again? Plus, as Marcus Rashford failed upwards by securing a move to Barcelona, is 90 million euros a fair price for an uncapped international striker? And do pre-season results actually matter? Newcastle losing 4-0 to Celtic at the weekend. It's Sam Matterface, Simon Jordan and Neil Warnock, and we're live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
And a very good morning to you. It's Simon Jordan. Hello, how are you?
I'm well.
Good.
I'm well. It's interesting to follow the broadcasting of Early Man. We saw the Darwin theory in reverse this morning with Jamie O'Hara.
And good morning, Mr. Warnock.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you?
All right. I'm looking forward tomorrow, Simon, to bring in a little bit of articulate.
Oh, you're there tomorrow, are you?
Yes, I'm with.
Okay.
I'm with.
So you're with us today, breakfast show tomorrow.
Yeah, breakfast show tomorrow. Yeah.
You must have made a good impression on him if he's still hiring you after all these years.
I know. Well, listen, we go back along. We've had our moments, which every chairman and manager has. But if anything, it brought us together really. So I owe a lot to that being happened. The incidents that happened. No doubt Simon will mention it at some stage.
The relationship between the two is so good they might even agree at some point this morning. What a weekend of sport. What was you watching? What got you
I went
hooked?
to the boxing, didn't I?
Yeah.
So I went to the boxing, which was an interesting event. Disappointing in outcome, disappointing in performance, but notwithstanding the spectacle that Frank had put on in terms of the scale of the scenario. It does show you, though, when you get the levels of atmosphere, that when Anthony Joshua walks into an auditorium, the levels are so different from anything else. The level was there. Daniel was coming into the ring. Usyk is a hero and a brilliant fighter. But the comparison between the fight between Joshua and Dubois in atmosphere terms and the atmosphere on Saturday was different, but disappointing, the outcome. Disappointed with Daniel.
13
you know, like when I watch that, I know you're the boxing man, Simon, but when I watch Usyk, I just love him. I know he's not English. I just love him. How he looks at what he's going to do, and he just bides his time, and he knows exactly how quick he's going to be and what the weaknesses are. I just, and he's not a massive man, is he?
But he's a quality operator in every way. When you sit in the studio with him, I think that if you've done that, Sam, he just exudes an air of substance and dignity and integrity and character, and everything that an elite sportsman should be. I remember listening to Federer years ago. I had dinner with him once and listened to him thinking, my word, he's a sponsor's dream.
Yeah.
And Usyk, in his space, is the same.
And you notice that the British public have started to appreciate that as well. I mean, look, a lot of people have always known and realised his absolute technical quality, but also people appreciate the achievement now, don't you? You can see that by the response on Saturday night.
Coupled with the state of the circumstances around his country.
Yes.
And how people feel about how he embodies and emboldens his own people.
Or 13 title fights that he's fought.
Undefeated, of course, cruiserweight and heavyweight.
And all of them have been away from home. None of them in his homeland, obviously because of the circumstances.
I mean, they talk about him retiring now. I don't see how he will. I don't see how he will. I just think now it's become so much. I mean, the sort of Joshua and Fury, and I suppose them two will get together at some stage.
Well, it depends what he's going to fight for, Neil. I mean, ultimately, he's beaten everybody. He's beaten the best of the best. He doesn't really need to wait around for Moses Satama, who's the up-and-coming heavyweight, who will be the heavyweight champion of the world. Yeah. He doesn't need to wait around for that young buck to come through. Yeah. You know, maybe he'll fight Joe Parker, maybe he won't. But if you've beaten the best, you've done Dubois twice, you've done Joshua twice, you've done Fury twice.
But isn't it easy money, Simon, at that stage?
To a point, yeah, but, you know, what price do you put on your health? Yeah. He's in good nick, physically and mentally. Yeah. He goes out with a legacy. If he goes out undisputed, he'll be one of the few fighters in the history of boxing to ever achieve it, and the only one besides Rocky Marciano in the heavyweight division. So who knows?
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it a little bit more with Duke McKenzie after 11 o'clock this morning here on talkSPORT. Wasn't the only show of sporting greatness this weekend. The Open obviously goes into that category as well, and one of the big stories yesterday was Scotty Scheffler's triumph at Portrush. Rupert Bell, our golf correspondent, has joined us this morning as well. Morning, Rupert. Thanks for coming on the programme.
Morning, Sam.
Yesterday, talkSPORT learned also of the sad news of the passing of our golf correspondent in America, Bob Bubka. Bob's iconic voice, known across the globe, and brought joy to millions.
Radio is about voices, and there is no doubt when you heard Bob Bubka speak, it just grabbed you.
What a performance, what a player, what a championship.
His distinctive American tones enthralled and entertained talkSPORT listeners for over 25 years.
Birdie putt comes up just 2 inches shy, but he's going to walk up and tap it in. Congratulations to Brooks Koepka. He wins his third major in his last 7 attempts.
In later years, Bob's health made it difficult to travel, and his last Open in situ was at St Andrews in 2021. He loved being there, and the relish which he drove his motorised wheelchair around the city was fantastic. But what he also loved was the interaction with talkSPORT listeners. And I know in the end, being part of the talkSPORT family was so important to him as he struggled with ill health. But even when physically frail, that voice never faltered. Covering the majors will never be the same without that extraordinary voice drawing us in to the magnificent sport of golf. Bob, we'll miss you.
And Rupert, Bob was always great to be around. He was a very infectious personality as well, and kind to everybody he came across here at talkSPORT when he came into the building. And I know that meeting him for the first time, it sort of took me aback a little bit, because I know this is stupid and people say this all the time, but he didn't actually look like what he sounded like. I mean, he's got such a unique voice, and that was the beauty of him, because the moment he opened his mouth, the moment that you heard that voice, you knew immediately you were listening to golf, and you were listening to golf on talkSPORT.
It was magnetic. Hypnotic. I mean, I've worked with him for 25 years, and it was never dull. And that voice never changed. It wasn't an act. It was him, and he'd sort of use it in front of everybody, and people would just warm to him. He had an infectious personality that people, a bit like a moth around a flame, people were drawn to him. I was never bored in his company. He used to take the mickey out of me unmercifully, but then I sort of saw that as a sort of somehow a compliment, but we did have a sort of strange double act. We were sort of opposites, but opposites attract, and I loved being in his company. I also loved being in the company of his partner Janice, who was such an integral part of the team, and I know she has really appreciated the reaction on social media about the news of his death. It's been really comforting that Bob was so loved by listeners, and not just listeners, but the golfing community, because I was obviously been at Portrush and talking to many of the Americans who come over there. They saw him as a pioneer. He went out on a limb when he started doing radio broadcasts, and then obviously joined talkSPORT and so towards the end of the 90s, and then was an integral part of the team. But he loved seeing great golf, and he would have just loved to have seen Scotty Scheffler dominate, just as Tiger Woods. And obviously Bob was a personal friend of Tiger. Great stories over the years. Even when he was ill, Tiger rang him in the hospital, wishing him well. So all the players sort of loved being interviewed by him, because he made it different. And that tells you, I know he would have revelled in seeing Scotty Scheffler put in a Tiger-like performance yesterday.
Bob, when you talk about him, it's Neil Warnock here, Rupert. I just wanted to say, like when I look back and listen on the radio, the voices are so important, aren't they? I remember Peter Allis, and I remember like the first match of the days with Kenneth Wostenholme, and the voices just sort of, I don't know, you can't really put it into words, but they do make it. And when he used to come on, he used to say, "Over to our correspondent, Bob Bubka," and you knew you just stopped what you were doing and listened to him. I could have listened to him all night.
And he'd suddenly go, "Hi, Paul. Hi, Andy. Hi, Sam." That would always and then you just go, you're puttying his hands from there on in. And that was what he was like. And radio, we all know this business is about voices. But I'll tell you what, every one of us would love to have had that voice, because it was just beautiful. And then but his way of describing the game was, just free flowing, but often just, well, where did that phrase come from? One of his he always used to, if something good was happening, the way he used to say, "Good golly, Miss Molly," when describing a good golf shot. I'm not even going to attempt it, but it was just great. He made you love the game of golf, and he was a great historian of the sport. Jack Nicklaus asked him to come when he was made a rector at St Andrews, to be at the ceremony honouring him, and that motorised the scooter got him in there, but Jack made a point of saying, "I want you there." He loved the history of the game, did Bob. He loved the Ryder Cup. He wrote a book about it, and I know that he would have loved to have possibly been at Bethpage, which is going to be fiery, and Bob would love to have been able to report on that. So I will miss him, as I know so many people will. He's left a great gaping hole in our golf coverage.
Yes, and we'll continue to pay tribute to him here on talkSPORT, I'm sure, over the course of the next couple of days. And our love to Janice too. He would have been fascinated by yesterday's performance by Scotty Scheffler. Imperious, and actually 4 shots doesn't really do it justice, Rupert. Just very quickly on him. Double bogey at 8, caught in a bunker. Started smashing it, never looked like he was going to get out of it. All of a sudden, after that double bogey, hits a birdie in response, and it's plain sailing from there. What does that tell you about this guy's mindset?
He has a steely determination. He looks like an average Joe, but I tell you what, he plays golf better than anybody. And the rest of the field were all saying, we have now got to raise our game, because he was on cruise control. The next best player was at 13 under par. Well, Scotty Scheffler started that final round at 14 under par. He was basically okay, that double bogey, he then responds with a birdie, and it was game over. It was magical to watch. This is a man at the top of his powers. He is brilliant. He's not flashy. He doesn't, that 2-minute statement basically says it's not the most important thing. It's a sport. I'm just very good at it. I will do my best. Well, his best is better than anyone else, but then actually away from it, as you saw, his family and outside is what he sees as the most important thing.
Rupert, you know, on Saturday night, when the game had finished and all, I said to my son William, I said, he'll win by 6 tomorrow. That's how I just felt, because you knew he wasn't going to make a mistake, didn't you? He's so, you know, he just plods on, doesn't he? A bit like what Faldo used to do in my era.
Well, I think he's going to do it even better than Faldo used to do it. And at the moment, the comparisons are with Tiger Woods. He's now under 30, and he's joined a select group of 4 that includes Tiger Woods to win 3 majors. The one that he's now waiting for is the US Open to complete the career Grand Slam. He's also an Olympic gold medalist as well, so he could have the golden slam of achievements if he does go and win. When I'm sure he'll win the US Open if he's continuing to play like this in due course. He is just brilliant to watch. It's not flashy, but he just does everything
his action's a bit like mine, Rupert, actually.
Well, it's not that good.
His action. Yeah.
Rupert, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on this morning. We'll speak to you soon. And congratulations to Scotty Scheffler. I mean, you two deal with elite sportsmen on a regular basis, or have done on a regular basis. And different sportsmen deal with the mental side of the game very differently. You look at Usyk, who invokes the power of his countrymen and the situation that Ukraine is in. Scheffler, very different response this week with his comments about it not being the most important thing. What's he trying to do there? Is he trying to sort of basically almost minimise the achievement of winning so it's not so big in his mind, making it smaller so it's more achievable? What's he trying to do?
I think it's existential navel gazing, but I also think it's a byproduct of the way that elite athletes have to be forced to interact with the media. You saw an example 4 weeks ago of Rory McIlroy being lauded and applauded by everybody in the media 6 weeks ago when he won the Masters. Roll forward 3 weeks against the PGA, and he's been taken down by the media because he doesn't want to speak to them, didn't play very well in that tournament, earned the right to speak to them when he feels like it. So I think these elite athletes sit back and go, when you reach an Everest, you go, okay, what else is there? Whether it's money or recognition or fame or credibility, and you look around and you think, well, actually, it can be quite lonely there, but also I live in a world where I'm very ambitious. And when I'm an ambitious person, what I've got is never enough. So then sometimes you reach that point and you go, well, what else is there? And then you've got this barking, sniping, snidey media that will be looking to take you down all the time by the next thing that you haven't done, the next thing that you should do, the next thing that they expect of you. So I think a lot of that played into what Scotty Scheffler said last week, and I thought it was quite interesting. A lot of people would have said, oh, hang on a second, I dig a ditch for a living. How can this fella that earns millions of quid have no value in this?
I think he was quite clever as well at what he said, Simon, in the fact that just deflecting it a little bit, but that his family, you know, I know his family is more important, but you can't tell me that he's not, you know, he's not up for these.
He wasn't saying that, Neil. He was saying like, absolutely, but it's not the most important thing.
Yeah.
You know, when you listen to certain aspects of the media, you have to bleed. If you give an apology to somebody, it's never good enough. You have to write it in blood. If you win something, you've got to win something else, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. And I think he was just disarming the idea that everything must begin, end and finish with his golf, and I think that was quite interesting to hear.
You're listening to Matterface, Jordan and Warnock. We're live on talkSPORT this morning with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. Next we're going to be looking at the transfer dealings at Old Trafford. Rashford out and Burmo in. How would Neil have sorted them out? very good morning to you. It's Sam Matterface, Neil Warnock and Simon Jordan, and we're here right the way through until 1 o'clock this lunchtime. Barcelona have agreed a deal to sign Manchester United forward Marcus Rashford on loan with an option of a permanent purchase. The 27-year-old has taken a €10 million pay cut, while United won't be paying anything towards his salary. Meanwhile, Manchester United have agreed a fee of £65 million with a further £6 million worth of add-ons for Brentford forward Bryan Mbeumo. Let's start, Neil. So many have tried and failed with Manchester United to try and turn them around. What are your thoughts on how Ruben Amorim is going about it?
I just thought he started off... I don't believe you can go into a club and say, I'm going to play this system. I think you go into a club and look at what players you've got, and then think, right, I'll play this system to suit the good players that I've got. But he's gone in and said he's going to play three at the back and all this. And I don't think they've got three centre-halves. I don't think they've had three centre-halves for years. Or full-backs good enough to do what he wanted. So I think, they signed two decent players. But I think they should have started at the other end, if I'm honest, to build a side that's going to come back into it.
Barcelona are restricted on who they can sign, right? So let's be clear, this idea of Marcus Rashford going to Barcelona has only come about because Barcelona were told by La Liga they weren't going to get Nico Williams because they weren't allowed to invest money in transfer fees. Okay. So they can only sign players on loan and then specific salary marks at the moment. But what do you think they saw with Marcus Rashford at Aston Villa that made him sort of the target, a person that they thought could fit into a team that's also got Rafinha, Lewandowski, Ferran Torres, Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Gavi? How is he going to fit in there, and what's he going to do?
They've lost the left-sided lad. I can't remember his name now, but they've lost the left-sided lad at Barcelona, and I think they've got him in just to fit in there. I don't think he'll play up front, mate.
Well, left-sided last season was Rafinha, and Rafinha got 34 goals and 25 assists. Lewandowski played through the middle, and Lamine Yamal's playing on the right-hand side. So
he's a very fortunate boy.
He is a
very fortunate boy. I'm interested to see how the metrics of the analysis you just gave. How's he taking a €10 million pay cut when his central employer is Manchester United? So Man United have a contractual obligation. Whether it's offset by what Barcelona are contributing is what it is. But I don't really see how Man United have gotten out of their central obligation.
Well, is it not because he's agreed to take a pay cut in order to be able to facilitate the move?
Well, that would be interesting if he has indeed, because he's got a contract. So it would be interesting to see how they've...
But he's desperate to go there.
Well, yeah, because he wants to play next season in the World Cup. So I think that was one of the major levers that United had to pull. Everyone was sitting there saying, well, how's this going to work? He holds the cards. He isn't going to go anywhere that he doesn't want to go. The flip side of it was he was going to sit in the middle of nowhere not playing football. So I think they found a solution. I don't know how the mechanisms have been deployed to work out the fact that his salary can be sacrificed. I don't know how he's done a deed of variation on his contract. I'm assuming that he has. Barcelona must have some contractual obligations to buy him. So that must mean in a year's time. I don't just mean airy-fairy ones. I mean real ones. Yeah. Because ultimately, otherwise, United are achieving very little by saving 15
I think he'll have thought he's won the pools, mate, Mike Rashford, because... to play for Barcelona, no disrespect to the clubs that he's been involved with, but it's like when you're a kid, you dream of playing at Barcelona. And I think he will have took a drop, whatever it is. I don't know how it works, like Simon knows more than that. But I think he will have said, look, I want to go there, whatever it costs me, I want to go there. Because to play at a Real Madrid, Barcelona for a player like him, who's really on the fringe of everything, isn't he? He's got to pull his finger out now, hasn't he, really, and show the ability that we all know he's got.
Well, we'll get Alex Crook on the programme in just a second, and he's going to sort of go through the mechanics of the deal and the one that's taking Bryan Mbeumo to Brentford. But is there a possibility that by going to the Camp Nou, surrounded by bigger personalities possibly, that he can recapture his best form? How would you get the best out of him?
No, I mean, let's be fair. The better the team is, the better you'll play. It brings you up to it. You look at the players they've got. He's going to get the ball in the right areas where he's good at, where he's potential. The last third, they get a lot of ball in the attacking half because there's so much on top, Barcelona, against the team. So he's got no excuse now. He'll get the ball in the right areas. Whether he can establish himself in the team is another thing when you look at the players that they've got, like you mentioned.
Manchester United spent quite a lot of money. Mbeumo, obviously, nearly 70 million quid, and Cunha, they spent £62 million on. Those deals maybe have add-ons as well, which have cost implications. Can they keep spending more? Because they still need more players, as Neil was saying.
It all depends how they comply with the overall governance. I mean, we had this ridiculous conversation with Jim Radcliffe about 6 months ago where he came out with this absolute bag of nonsense about Man United were going to run out of money. We all know that was rubbish, absolute drivel, even their own account said it. And actually, quite frankly, he should have been held up by the New York Stock Exchange for being an influential figure influencing securities, because it was not an accurate statement. Clearly, they've got money. It's whether they can comply with PSR. Now, we're seeing clubs find their way through it. We've seen Chelsea find their way through it. We've seen Aston Villa find their way through it. There's no reason to believe that Manchester United won't find their way through it. And all this idea that like Barcelona were going to melt down 2 years ago, everyone in the media was saying Barcelona's in meltdown. They weren't. They were restructuring, re-engineering in the same way that Manchester United are. Going to Rashford, believe me, he'll have a decent season. Believe me, because there's a motivation at the end of it. And then at the end of the season, when he plays his little World Cup and contributes or doesn't contribute, he'll revert to type, because the motivation is there. When he wanted to play in the Euros, the motivation was there. Or in the last World Cup in Qatar, the motivation was there, and then he comes back from the Qatar World Cup and has a shoulder surgery before he goes back to Man United.
So how do you keep the motivation high?
Get good managers to control him, or don't worry about him so much and let him worry about himself.
Because it's not like he's only played under one manager. This is a guy who's played under several managers now. Unai Emery is one of the most recent, obviously.
I didn't think he did bad there at times when he played left on the left-hand side.
And
he gave him the ball in the right place as well. And I think, but I think he does need handling. But it's like, it's hard, Simon, with the money that they're on. It's hard for the manager now to, especially the old-fashioned managers that used to just manage. Now, players, if you have a shout at them, then they get their agents to talk to you and somebody else and what have you. So it's all going to be down to him now as an individual. He's got to get his head right and show people, because I'm sure he wants to show people. I thought Arsenal might sign him, me. I just thought, why not give it a go up front for Arsenal? Because, I'm not sure about the lad they're trying to sign. Being definitely the number one. I thought it's worth a punt for our, but I suppose they've got to do it now when you look at
Goicoechea.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the goal scoring record. I know the translation from the Portuguese league may be difficult, but look at the goal scoring records.
Well, we're going to get into him in just a second, because Alex Cook got an update on that deal as well. He's also going to explain to us how and why it was reported this weekend that Manchester United are going to save 20 million quid on Rashford's wages. That's coming next here on talkSPORT.
For Gareth Bale, it was Wales, golf, then Madrid. For Scotty Scheffler, it's faith, family, then golf. And Andrew Beef Johnson is in awe of the new Open champions' mentality.
As a sportsman, I think, again, you fall into a trap of it becomes sort of like this the most important thing. He can sort of separate himself from it being of that importance, and I think it's such a mental power.
Eddie Jones says the Wallabies have to make the game more unstructured from the get-go if they're to have any hope against the Lions in the second test at Melbourne. His favourite non-biological son, Owen Farrell, will captain the midweek side tomorrow, and Eddie says he'll be the perfect man.
For those guys who haven't played in the first test, for them to have a good performance in that game will make them feel like they're still contributing to the tour, and I think that's going to be pretty important.
And after making Daniel Dubois look non-league at Wembley on Saturday, Alexander Usyk has got to rank in the all-time top 10. That's the view of Fight Night presenter Adam Cattrall.
I know there's other champions out there in the modern day that are stepping up in weight and doing multi-weight championships. But if you think about it, the gap between cruiserweight and who he's fighting is absolutely gigantic. Cruiserweight limit is 200 pounds. He's now fighting guys at 260, 270, and he's not just beating them once. He's then going back and beating them more conclusively a second time.
Yeah.
And again, he's still doing it all the way from home.
For Gareth Bale, it was Wales, golf, then
Coldplay are back at Wembley this summer, and we've got a huge VIP prize up for grabs for you. It's pretty simple to have the chance to win 6 tickets in a private box for you and your mates. But make sure you take your mates. August the 22nd with full hospitality available. Plus, we're chucking in 10 grand spending money, completely tax-free. Here's how to enter. 18 plus UK, excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, just text WIN to 83338. By 4th of August, 11 p.m, and you're in the draw. Test costs just £2 plus 1 standard message rate. You have to have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Coldplay Competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. Arrive by 5 p.m. on the 7th of August. It's a TalkSPORT limited promotion run on TalkSPORT, Talk Radio, and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions are available at talksport.com. Ever been caught on kiss cam?
Me? Yeah. No.
I'm glad you're asking him. It wouldn't defer to me.
Alex Crook's certainly been caught on kiss cam. Morning.
Only with you. Morning.
You're right. Right. Go on, explain it to us. How is Rashford taking a £10 million or €10 million pay cut?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Manchester United have made it clear that wherever he ends up this summer, they don't want to be paying towards his wages. It was a similar situation when he went to Aston Villa in January. I think this pay cut is more related to bonuses and loyalty payments in his contract than actually taking a cut of his weekly wage. Either way, it does save Manchester United an estimated £17 million over the course of the season. The fact that Barcelona are covering the remainder of his wages in full, and that probably will allow them now to dip into the transfer market. They need a number 9, obviously, and Mbeumo deal is going to happen. Cunha already over the door. I watched the friendly against Leeds at the weekend, and the same problems were there, really. They struggled to create chances. They started with young Chidio up front, put himself around, but I think he's still very raw. Rasmus Højlund came on in the second half. I know it's only a pre-season friendly, and Neil will say don't read too much into what happens in pre-season. But the same problems were there when it came to Højlund. Lack of movement, lack of confidence in front of goal. So I think getting a number 9 is really the next priority.
Liverpool trying to do the same thing as well. They've got a deal in place for Eintracht Frankfurt for the signing of the 23-year-old Hugo Ekitike. A fee worth over €90 million has been quoted, which could potentially reach 95 through add-ons. And he's going to sign a 6-year contract 15 goals, 33 Bundesliga games, 3 goals in 26 in Ligue 1 for PSG. Does this feel like a sizable transfer fee?
It does. I know when I was in the studio with Simon last week, he was a bit surprised at how much Ekitike was costing with it's still a fairly limited body of work. He obviously got that big move to Paris Saint-Germain early in his career, and it didn't really work out. I think he only played 1 league game for the French champions, but he has rebuilt his reputation over in Germany. I was told yesterday this deal isn't quite done yet. There's still a bit of haggling to be done in terms of add-ons and the final fee. But I think Liverpool are looking to do what Sir Alex Ferguson used to do really at Manchester United and strengthen from a position of power. And unlike United, actually, this moment in time, if Liverpool do spend big money on a player like Ekitike and it doesn't quite work out, it's not terminal, is it? You look at Darwin Núñez, they spent big on him. He'll leave this summer. I mean, he had a pretty underwhelming Anfield career, but because there are so many good players now in that Liverpool squad, if you take a chance in the transfer market and it doesn't come off, it doesn't really have too much of a negative impact.
What do you make of these transfers?
Isn't it a lot of money, that, for somebody who's, he's had a good season or whatever, but there's so many question marks against what he's going to be like. I don't know where the money's going now. 90 million pounds for that. I just think it's too much of a gamble, mate. Or are they using that to try and give him a bit more time for the Newcastle lad?
Well, maybe. Liverpool would have done the math, though, won't they? They would have put all their calculations in. They're very good with their algorithms and data, etc., etc. But what does the normalisation of fees of this side do for the rest of the Premier League?
Well, is it a normalisation or is it just a circumstance where there's a lot of competitive tension around this?
Florian Wirtz going for over 100 million quid, 150 for Isak's been quoted.
Sure. I mean, I think the marketplace is where it is, right, for certain football clubs. I look at it and say, like Neil said, I said the other day, and Alex mentioned it a moment ago, about the credentials of this kid. He must have a lot of potential. Liverpool don't tend to buy bad players. I mean, I know the Núñez example is a glaring one where it hasn't worked out the way they wanted it to work out. But I do think it's a lot of money. I mean, you're looking at a player that hasn't achieved that much to be at that sort of level. It can only be because of the competitive tension in the marketplace. The other side of the equation is you have clever agents that get involved in deals and do Erling Haaland at 55 million quid. So you have both ends of the spectrum. But you're in a bull market for players right now.
There's not that many, is there, son? Not many strikers around.
That's the issue, isn't it?
At the moment, that good.
And that's why. And then you look at the Darwin Núñez situation, and actually, Crook, it is worth pointing out there was a different regime that did the hiring there.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, actually, when you look at the journey that Michael Edwards, since he came back to Liverpool, and Richard Hughes, the sports director, have been on. They took a lot of flack for not signing anybody bar Chiesa last summer, and obviously Mamardashvili, who was sent out on loan. They took flack in January for not adding to their title challenge. They win the league, and then they go massive this summer. And I think some Liverpool fans would like a statue of Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards now erected outside Anfield. So they know what they're doing. And with the Villa signing, and by all accounts, he's been absolutely red hot in training. I think he played in the behind closed doors friendly at the weekend and made an impact. I think they're clear favourites for me, despite the fact that Arsenal obviously are trying to do business. Manchester City have added to their squad and we're in need of a rebuild. I think it's difficult to see beyond Liverpool retaining their title.
Newcastle missed out on several targets so far this summer. Any danger that they're going to miss out on James Trafford as well now? We'll hear from Eddie Howe shortly on Alexander Isak's omission from the squad for the defeat at Celtic. But how much disruption has the departure of sporting director Paul Mitchell created? Because Eddie did say in a quote at the weekend that actually it does take a bit of pressure off a manager when you've got someone else to do all the negotiations.
Yeah, but Eddie's always been someone who likes to have a big say on how a club is run. So I think he's pretty comfortable in this position. He's got Andy Howe there as well, who I think goes under the radar, but he's been responsible for a lot of the signings that Newcastle have made, the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali, and most latterly Anthony Elanga this summer. But there's no hiding the fact it's been frustrating for Newcastle. They spoke to Dean Howson, but how do you tempt him to sign for you ahead of Real Madrid? João Pedro, I think, was always London-bound and always wanted Chelsea. Brian Mbeumo did speak to Newcastle, but made it clear right from the off that Manchester United was the only club for him. The James Trafford one is a little bit of a saga because you go back a year, they probably could have got him out of Burnley for a maximum of £25 million. They didn't do that deal. By all accounts, Paul Mitchell dragged his heels a little bit. Here we are a year later. He's had a brilliant season in the Championship. Burnley don't need to sell. They want to keep their players for their own tilt staying in the Premier League. And Manchester City have this £40 million buyback option that I think they're seriously considering capitalising on. Stefan Ortega could go in the opposite direction. So at the moment, this does look like another target that Newcastle will miss out on. And I think there's frustration up at St James's Park. They're trying to be ambitious, but because of the PSR rules and the fact that the Premier League changed the rules in the wake of the Saudi Arabian takeover, they're always going to miss out to those more established teams, the so-called Big Six.
Diplomatic, isn't it? I think that was the word I'd use for Eddie. You can't blame him for being like, you can't have a go at people like Simon and all that's above you, because there's only one winners. So I think you have to go along with that, really, and just same with the problem he's got now, where he sent him home on Saturday, didn't he? And we've all had that problem, and you hope it goes away, but sometimes it doesn't. Once a player gets it in his head, he's thinking, I can win the Champions League with Liverpool or what have you, and will I do that at Newcastle, is he? And so
it's interesting how the version of events changed. This time last year, Paul Mitchell was the problem. Paul Mitchell was the problem. There was a disconnect between Paul Mitchell and Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
And roll forward a year, and Paul Mitchell not being there is now the problem.
Well, no, I don't think we said that. I think
the whole media reporting last year was a fallout between Paul Mitchell and Eddie Howe, and the comments that Paul Mitchell made about Eddie Howe being involved in the transaction of Mark Gahey and so on and so forth. And now roll forward, and we're spinning a different narrative that he's not there. Now
we are not spinning a different narrative. The quote came out from Eddie at the weekend saying that sometimes having a sporting director is a good shield for
latch upon it.
I'm just telling you what was said over the weekend. I'm not latching upon it, but actually the issue here is nothing to do with who's a sporting director and who's got this. It's the fact that the established order was smashed with money.
It's also got nothing to do with PSR. Newcastle got plenty of PSR headroom. They've got plenty of PSR headroom. It will do to you can have the argument absolutely about legacy football clubs. If you're going to go and play, the main thrust for Newcastle is to keep Usyk. Keeping Usyk and keeping away from that challenge is as good as a new signing. And supplement around him, which they're doing. Alanga's coming into supplements. And they've got some depth in their squad. They perhaps need a little bit more quality. But the idea that PSR is restricting Newcastle, yes, they can't go with wild abandon, which is what Man City and Chelsea did to build their football clubs. Sure, and the game has changed. And ultimately Man City and Chelsea were the poster boys of how to build a football club out of one person's wishes, right? Rather than organically and creatively. But Newcastle have headroom. They had headroom last year. They tried to buy Gahey for 65 million quid. They've got headroom now. The problem they've got is if you're competing against the established order, which is Liverpool and Man City that have Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues in their back cupboard, then you're struggling. And that's the problem that they've got. And they'll have to pay for that privilege, perhaps in the wages.
Okay, quickly, let's get the latest on Gyökeres before we have to break.
Yeah, this is another one of the sagas of the summer, and there were some rumours over here in Portugal, where I am at the moment, yesterday, that Manchester United were coming in for Gyökeres and were close to agreeing a deal. That was quickly shot down by my sources at United. They haven't made a bid. They're not planning on making a bid. They expect him to go to Arsenal, and I think we could well see movement on that imminently. I still think Gyökeres, despite Sporting driving a hard bargain, will be an Arsenal player and will finally end that 3-year search for number 9 for the Gunners.
And that's why you're in Portugal, is it? You're out there to chase up that story, is it? Or is that a beach towel that I can see by your left shoulder?
I'm off to watch Forest Fulham on Saturday, never off duty.
Yeah. Who's paying for that? Right, okay, thank you very much. Speak to you later. That's Alex Crook, our chief football correspondent.
Watch out on the beach, you might get harpooned.
He loves a swim. He does love an open water swim.
Oh dear, yeah. Everyone else goes up in the tide.
Do you do that, Sam? Do you do it in Spain? Do you go in the sea?
Yes, very much so, yes. Yeah, indeed. On my jet skis.
You get poisoned if you go in the water, don't you? In England.
It's not the cleanest, is it? Let's be completely honest. I've been in Switzerland for 3 weeks. Everyone just swims to work in the rivers. They're crystal clear. It's like being in Barbados.
Everyone swims to work in the rivers.
They do.
Everybody.
Is it
exaggeration?
They do.
Absolutely.
They do. They get these dry bags, and a lot of
this
them
is the
commute.
commentator's curse of crap.
They can,
Sam, let it go.
Do a bit of research.
Everyone in Switzerland.
I'll take you over there.
To work.
Yeah.
They don't swim to work. They flow down with
everyone
the
in Holland wears clogs.
Oh, God, I'm so pleased I got this gig. You're listening to Matterface, Jordan and Warnock on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deal at selcobw.com. We'll be looking at Morgan Gibbs-White turning out for Nottingham Forest this weekend as his departure saga continues. And I think you look quite good in a pair of clogs.
Do you think?
Yeah. Matterface alongside Simon Jordan today. We've got Neil Warnock here as well. Morecambe Gibbs-White, big story of the summer. He played 45 minutes for Nottingham Forest yesterday. They drew 0-0 against Monaco. How do you view that? Is he being professional playing for the club? But from a club perspective, if he is off, could it be argued that actually he's taking valuable minutes away from players that will be featuring for the club next season? How do you balance that as a manager?
I bet he didn't do many tackles. Really, if I'm honest. I bet it's difficult for. I mean, he has to play to get himself fit, but you know everybody knows what goes on behind the scenes. So.
Do they? What goes on behind the scenes?
Of course they do. Everybody, you know, there's no transfer happens without somebody talking to the player from the club involved. So, you know...
That used to be a big thing, though. Go back 20 years, everyone used to kick off if anyone thought there was tapping up. Look at the Ashley Cole situation. They ended up going to court over it. There was a whole big drama.
Well, that brought us together.
That story?
No, that story. I tapped one of his players up, Marcus Bent, and then he grabbed me when we played him down there and collared me in the room, and we had half an hour. It was good.
It's a strange rule because in no other industry is it expected that you aren't able to speak to someone else if you might want them to come and play for you or work for you. If Barclays Bank wants someone to come from Lloyd's, they don't have to go through some ridiculous protocol of not being able to speak to them. The reality of it is that the release clause has become an even bigger opportunity for agents now. The idea of a release clause was to protect both the club's value and also to perhaps protect players from being locked into contracts they can't get out of, like Erling Haaland engineered a contract which predominantly benefited Erling Haaland because you bought a player for 55 million quid in an open marketplace would have been 150 million quid, and it engineered the opportunity for the player to get bigger salary and the agent to get paid. Well, the release clause now is creating hostage to fortune because it enables people to be able to create a different marketplace by talking to clubs about what that release clause might mean, or suggesting to a club that's got a release clause, how about the release clause that we've got in here, which is 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, how about we hold it for 60? If I can get you 60, will you split the deal with me and I'll split it with a player? It creates a whole raft of connotations and a whole raft of challenges. This situation with the circumstances around Marinakis getting very uptight about what's gone on there and how it's gone on, well, you know, David Manasseh is Morecambe Gibbs-White's agent. I would imagine if you've got information being given to Tottenham, there's only three sources it can come from, isn't there, really? It can only come from the club, which Marinakis is suggesting has nothing to do with him and certainly wouldn't allow anyone to be given that information out.
So Marinakis'
player
is
or the agent.
they know the value of the buyout clause?
Correct.
But why
would you have one if it wasn't one?
Marinakis is saying because that it shouldn't be publicly.
Yeah,
because you've got that in writing.
Because you're bound by confidentiality.
Oh, right.
There's a confidentiality. Now, because you've got to release a player, doesn't mean you've got. If an offer is at 60 million quid and then someone else comes along and offers you 65 million quid, you're going to want to take the 65 million quid offer, aren't you?
Yes.
There's certain obligations upon you to inform the player. Then the player has a certain obligation to be able to go and agree his personal terms within 5 days. Otherwise, offers rescind.
There's a lot of trust there, though, that public figure is not. Well, that figure's not going to become public because everyone is going to make it public.
But if you're bound by confidentiality, first and foremost, there's three people that will know.
Yeah.
The club, so the club are not going to tell anybody. The agent, who's bound by confidentiality, and the agent will be invariably being paid by the club because the club will have paid him.
If the release clause is close to the value of the player or the perceived market value of the player, then you're going to likely going to hit that anyway. Every time someone bids out the release clause, you're going to say, "Oh no, he tapped him up." Maybe they just bid that much money.
The valuation of a player is very subjective, right?
Absolutely.
Who would have valued? So your argument holds no water.
No, of course it does.
Because if you're bidding the valuation of the player and the valuation to you is very different to the valuation of the selling club, it becomes subjective. Now, Jack Grealish had a £100 million release clause. Nobody with much common sense thought that Jack Grealish was worth 100 million quid. You look at Erling Haaland, and you say, well, Erling Haaland in the marketplace was worth a damn sight more than 55 million quid.
So that's just a bad release clause.
No, it's a great release clause for the player.
For the player.
Yeah, but for the football club, it's a bad release clause.
But the football club couldn't get a contract, perhaps, with the player unless that clause was inserted, right? So the reality of it is that the marketplace establishes a certain value, and release clauses establish another. And it's designed in its purpose was to protect and insulate the clubs. But the series of unintended consequences, like most things in life, generate a series of opportunities. And now that opportunity is actually benefiting agents. And what Marinakis is getting his knickers in a twist about is if it were the agent, and I'm not suggesting it was David, I'm just throwing it out there. There's only three people who could have known this, so how does it become, in fact, is it known, and could that have to be established?
Well, that's the question.
Might have been David's gardener. You don't know.
If Marinakis is going to go after Spurs, or after the situation, I don't quite know where he's going with this, but if he takes a formal investigation, phones will be gotten, people will have to explain to them, to one another, how they've got this information, if they've indeed got this information. But the reality of it is, is that, you've got a player that will inevitably be leaving Nottingham Forest about where he goes.
But it's an obvious
and there's other parts of this deal.
When they put the 60 million value on him, he wasn't worth that.
But he is now.
But he's had a great season. He looks a good player. So he's benefited the club because
how would you value him at this moment in time? When you look at the market, you look at Cunha going for £62.5 million. How much would you value Morgan Gibbs-White?
I think that's a realistic figure.
It's a realistic figure. That was
but it wasn't. It wasn't. That's why
it wasn't.
The club wanted
but it is now.
It wanted the figure in.
But it's a realistic figure based upon certain circumstances. So, for example, there isn't a release clause, and the player's under contract for another 2 or 3 years. So, what's the market value then?
Well, it's the same. It's 60
million. 75,
no,
90.
It's not.
What, do you think he'll play 75 million?
No, but that's the market value.
No, it's not. It's not. So the market value of this kid that's being bought for 90 million quid is based upon what?
On Ekatike?
Yeah.
Potential, I would imagine.
Based upon market value.
But that's a slightly different position.
The fact competitive tension. So if you haven't got a release clause,
there's less number 9s than there are number 10s.
So you've got a player now that's at Nottingham Forest with no release clause, right? And the market says he's worth 30, 40, 56 million quid. He puts a transfer request in or refuses to play or downs tools. All of a sudden, you've got a dynamic which is different to the market value because you're dealing with a whole different circumstances.
Totally agree with you.
So it's not black and white.
My point is in this circumstance, the out if you are whoever it is who's bid the money, Tottenham Hotspur, is to say, no, we don't know anything about the clause. It's just the market value of a player of that calibre. And that's a legitimate argument in this case because that is about the market value of this player.
But there is a reason why Nottingham Forest are jumping up and down and shouting foul, isn't there?
Because they jump up and down and shout foul as a matter of course.
I understand that. But if you're going to jump up and down and shout foul and make an allegation and then draw it into a formal conclusion, it means that you have to have something pretty substantive to do it with, otherwise you look like a fool.
Well, maybe.
Right? So I would imagine, despite the fact that Marinakis is very capable of making a lot of noise, and very capable of digging his heels in, I would suspect that they will have some reason for saying it.
Yeah, some evidence or something.
And why that is the case, who knows? But my main point is release clauses are actually a challenge for the marketplace because they're a huge opportunity for that delightful species that I spend most of my time praising, which are agents that have got far too much power, far too much influence, and getting between the wall and the wallpaper far too often.
But good agents put a release clause in.
How would you deal with Marinakis if you were working as his manager?
Don't get me involved in that. All right, ask somebody else on that. It's difficult. Hey, listen, I've had a few difficult chairmen. Don't keep looking at Simon. All right. So I mean, I've had a few difficult chairmen, but you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
You have to, try and keep them in the loop of what you're trying to do, and just hope that they support you. That's all. That's all you can do with it. And I know he's erratic at times, but he's done ever so well for the club.
He's done a fantastic job for the club.
And I love Nunes. We've had Barneys over the years, me and Nunes, but I think he's super as well.
Well, he's handled himself really well, hasn't he? I mean, he's dealt with the situation brilliantly. We're interested to see what sort of season they have next season. They've already spent some money, but they want to keep hold of Morgan Gibbs-White. That saga still developing. When we come back, we'll be joined in the studio by the former 3-weight world champion, Duke McKenzie. He's going to look back on that very convincing win for Alexander Usyk on Saturday night.
For Gareth Bale, it was Wales, golf, then Madrid. For Scotty Scheffler, it's faith, family, then golf. And Andrew Beef Johnson is in awe of the new Open champions' mentality.
As a sportsman, I think, again, you fall into a trap of it becomes sort of like it's the most important thing in the world. And don't get me wrong, from what I've heard, it is important to him. He can sort of separate himself from it being of that importance, and I think it's such a mental power.
Scheffler said he looks forward to heading home for some of his favourite Chipotle at a restaurant in Texas where no one recognises him. The Lionesses will refuse to take the knee prior to their Euro semi-final with Italy, claiming the gestures lost its impact. Yesterday, Jess Carter, the centre-back, revealed she'd been targeted with racial abuse on social media and she's leaving all platforms. Eddie Jones says the Wallabies have to make the game more unstructured from the get-go if they're to have any hope against the Lions in the second test at Melbourne. His favourite non-biological son, Owen Farrell, will captain the midweek side tomorrow, and Eddie says he'll be the perfect man for the job.
He's played 100 tests, scored the second most points for England. He'll enjoy that opportunity to keep the Lions on the front foot during the tour, because for those guys who haven't played in the first test, for them to have a good performance in that game will make them feel like they're still contributing to the tour, and I think that's going to be pretty important.
Correction, Eddie. Farrell is England's #1 point scorer of all time after surpassing Wilkinson's tally at the last World Cup. And after making Daniel Dubois look non-league at Wembley on Saturday, Alexander Usyk has got to rank in the all-time top 10. That's the view of finite presenter Adam Cattrall.
I know there's other champions out there in the modern day that are stepping up in weight and doing multi-weight championships. But if you think about it, the gap between cruiserweight and who he's fighting is absolutely gigantic. Cruiserweight limit is 200 pounds. He's now fighting guys at 260, 270. And he's not just beating them once. He's then going back and beating them more conclusively a second time.
Yeah.
And again, he's still doing it all the way from home.
Listen to comprehensive analysis on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel.
It's a new dawn.
talkSPORT, the home of boxing.
It's a new day.
The biggest prize in sport.
It's a new life.
Champion versus champion.
And I'm feeling good.
Let the battle begin.
The mouth, is that just starting to open here from Dubois?
It looks as though it might be. His bottom lip is looking swollen. Great shot from Usyk, left hand again. The crowd respond. He's down. Dubois down. But he's landed a huge left hand again. He's down once more. And I think it's going to be all over this time. Dubois is at the count of 8, 9, and the fight is over.
Perfection. The greatest fighter of our generation has to be Alexander.
It's talkSPORT, it's Sam Matterface alongside Simon Jordan with Neil Warnock, and I'm delighted to say we're joined in the studio by former three-weight world box champion boxer in Duke McKenzie, who joins us in the studio. Hi, Duke.
Sound good, mate. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. That was how it sounded, by the way, on talkSPORT over the weekend, and it was an amazing experience on the YouTube channel as well. We got over 1 million people joining us for the watch along, which is pretty special. Pretty special that Alexander Usyk is now the undisputed heavyweight world champion again. He's a two-time undisputed heavyweight world champion. Stopped Daniel Dubois in round 5 in front of 90,000 supporters at Wembley. Usyk already put Dubois down before he succumbed to the count after the second time. 38-year-old Usyk also stopped Dubois in 2023. We had Daniel in the studio in a couple of days after that to talk about it. He extended his perfect record as a professional to 24 victories from 24 fights. Dubois also lost against Joe Joyce back in 2020, but has 25 wins to his name, 22 knockouts. Before the fight, Duke was on Talk Boxing and made this prediction.
I'd love to see him beat Usyk, but I just can't see it because Usyk isn't slipping. He's not. He's like, his engine is like that of a Rolls Royce. He's just purring along quite comfortably, and he can obviously do things which other heavyweights can't do. In as much as he can adapt during a fight, if he's behind, he can adapt. If he's ahead, he can take a few rounds off. He can mix it up, box, fight.
Dubois better than when he fought him?
Oh, 100%. Daniel Dubois is, like I say, Daniel Dubois is a machine. And I'd back Daniel Dubois. If he was fighting anybody else other than Alexander Usyk, I'd back him to win.
You called it before the fight. Was this the best heavyweight boxer around, showing exactly why he has that title?
You know, when you look at Alexander Usyk, you're looking at a complete fighting machine. He can box and he can fight, as I said before. And unfortunately for Daniel, we just come up against... you have to say Alexander Usyk is an all-time great. The only question you have to find out now is where he fits in that all-time great top 10. But he is an unbelievable world champion. He proved it on Saturday. You know, everybody kept saying that Daniel Dubois is a much improved fighter, which we know he is. But, you know, what Alexander Usyk done at the weekend, he raised his game. And I don't know why people didn't think that he wasn't going to do that. He fights to the level of the opponent, basically. And every time he gets somebody in front of him, if you look at what he's actually done, when he fights him the first time, he'll beat him. Then second time round, he just ruins people.
Simon, what was your verdict?
Yeah, I mean, during the course of the events, discussing it with Duke and various other people, I picked Daniel Dubois on the basis that if Usyk was 3 or 4% off and the best version of Daniel Dubois was in the ring, then Daniel had a chance. But the best version of Daniel Dubois wasn't in the ring. And Usyk was at a level that he's maintained and retained. I don't think he was better than he's been before. I just think that he was, you know, at the level that he's been at since we've seen him land in the heavyweights, with the exception of perhaps Chisora and Chaz Witherspoon in the early fights. But when he's gone on to the elite fighters, he's been at that level. I thought Daniel was poor. I thought he was a mile off for whatever reason, whether there was distractions in the background, which I understand there are some distractions in the background, but it can't give him an excuse. Alexander Usyk is a fantastic fighter, but when you see the first round, Duke, and you see he gets Alexander Usyk in the corner, and you think this is the moment where Daniel's going to step in and let his hands go and start the course of events, whether it's wind that he hits or whether he lands and takes someone on the way in, and he didn't. And that, to me, set a pattern in the mind of where Daniel was. He was a mile off. He wasn't even at the level that he fought Usyk at when he fought him 2 years ago.
But do you remember when he came in the studio straight after that, and he sort of discussed it with us, and he was saying about, you know, the 2 low blows after that. He had him on the ropes. He had the fight in the palm of his hand at that point, and he was really upset with himself that he then sort of went into his shell straight afterwards, and he said that was because I was a naive younger fighter. In future fights, I'll have to go for it. I'll have to let my hands go and really, you know, test the opponent when that moment comes. Has he learned enough in the last 2 years?
Unfortunately for Daniel, talk's cheap, and when you come up against somebody that's just so good, like Usyk, you know, just like a little slip of the head, a little shoulder roll, a little step off, the guy can make you miss by minimal margins. Do you see what I mean? And make you look almost helpless. But Daniel Dubois, for me, I think also the magnitude of this fight got to him. You know, 90,000 people. I know he's boxing in that sort of arena before, but this fight seemed to be so much bigger. He looked tired in the first round.
Do you not think, Duke, it must be something to do with the preparation? The preparation to be like he was.
Mental prep you're talking about? Or physical
no,
prep?
mental and physical, both. I think probably mental more.
Yeah, he was in great shape.
Yeah. He looked good, didn't he?
Were you disappointed, Duke? I mean, he seemed to be out of range. He seemed to be falling over his feet. He didn't seem to be anywhere near. And I know a lot of that is to do with Usyk and how good Usyk is. And there must not be one single scintilla of this conversation that takes anything away from how good Usyk was. But there was an element of disappointment from my side of watching what I expected. I expected more from Daniel.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think it's simply, Duke, that Usyk was too good and didn't allow Daniel on, or is it because Daniel wasn't there?
Yeah, you know, Alexander Usyk raised his game, Simon. You know, I don't know why people can't really see that's exactly what he did. He raised his game. I've never seen Alexander Usyk. I saw him shadowboxing before that fight, and he was fighting like he just wanted to go to war. He looked ready. He knew that fight wasn't going to go the distance, and he just went out and he just attacked Daniel Dubois. He came up with his hands up and his chin down, and he went to work on him. And like I say, Daniel's work was lackluster from the first round.
Did you, when we were talking about it previously, in your mind's eye, were you expecting a points victory for Usyk, or were you pricing in that you thought Usyk would knock him out?
I thought Usyk would get him late,
right?
Because he sets a really quick pace, as you know, fights at a frenetic pace, and he knew he would have to fight at a frenetic pace. I almost think that Usyk probably thought if the fight was close, they might try and nick the title off him. That's why he fought with so much urgency, and he had a lot of venom in his punches, which you don't normally see from Usyk.
Were you comfortable with the stoppage? I mean, I saw John Charles throw a towel in, which my first reaction was, this is the heavyweight championship of the world. You don't throw a towel in. A part of me thinks that's the corner saving him, which didn't save him in the Joe Joyce fight in terms of the reaction to him. But Daniel gets up and walks across the ring.
Yeah.
Were you comfortable with that?
Well, you know, I'd have to watch it back again, because initially when I saw it, I thought that he didn't quit. So I don't want to say that he quit, because it's a bad way to describe any fighter. I know a lot of people are saying that. But, you know, he got nailed with a big left hook. And he went down very heavily. Yeah. I'm not so sure anybody could have got up from that shot. So I'd have to reserve judgment until I've seen it again.
What did you make about the corner? Because it did look at times that there was chaos in Dubois' corner.
Lots of chaos.
He arrived 90 minutes before his ring walk.
I don't know who does that. I just don't know. When you start looking at the things that were going wrong in the run up to this fight, the turning up late, the chaos in the corner, they're, like I say, they're red flags, obviously. So maybe they'll do some sort of an internal investigation with him and his team to find out what was what, but you don't turn up like 2 hours before a fight.
Well, there's a lot of noise. I mean, you cannot, again, this mustn't be used as an excuse for Usyk's excellence. But when you have parties at the house before the event and you've got 50, 60, 70 people in a party
doesn't make sense,
that the kid doesn't know and then has to go around the corner and drive because he doesn't know any of the party.
This is what you're hearing.
And then you get to an event and people want this entourage to be brought in and then start telling security guards that if the entourage isn't allowed to come in, Daniel's not going to fight. And then the father has other things to say in the corner, which I don't think are particularly productive. Once upon a time, it was considered to be useful because Daniel, you can see it, Daniel defers to his father on everything. Everything he does, he looks for his dad. And I'm not suggesting this father hasn't been a massive influence in what we saw and what we've seen now, but I think there's a balance between being an influence and a destructive force.
Where's Don Charles?
Well, Don Charles is an employee, and Don Charles is in the corner working engaged by Daniel Dubois' father. I'm not looking for excuses. I'm simply saying I'm not sure that on the day of the event the preparation was where it needed to be. Now that doesn't mean that Alexander Usyk wouldn't have still done the same thing to Daniel Dubois, but it didn't give it his best chance. It doesn't help him. No. And the same thing was said of Anthony Joshua, because I remember watching Joshua going against Dubois, watching a man walking to the fight looking like he was going to the gallows.
Yeah, sure.
And now we hear backwards that Anthony wasn't prepared, he got there late, there were instances going on in behind the scenes. So the preparation of an elite athlete, and he can talk about it as a three-weight world champion, is so important, the state of mind, isn't it, Duke?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you're going to any venue, you want to be there probably at least 4 hours before the fight. So you get in, you settle down, you can get your kit out, you do your shadow box and do your prep, do your warm-up and ABCD, go through your drills with your coach. But if these guys are only turning up, like, say, maybe like an hour or so, or 2 hours before a fight, then that all goes out the window. Everything's rushed, everything's hurried, and then when you get to the ring, you don't even know where you are. And that's how it looked with Daniel Dubois.
Look at the intensity. I mean, it's always a difficult thing going into the ring first. But when he went into the ring first, which, by the way, was a diabolical liberty in the Joshua fight, because he was a defending champion and he shouldn't have gone in first. But when he went in first in the fight against Joshua last year, the intensity from Daniel Dubois was on a different level. And you could see the mission statement by the nature of the way he went into the ring.
Yeah.
In this one, I don't think he was walking towards the gallows, but there was a different energy, wasn't there?
Different energy, Simon. He looked. I don't even know how to describe it. He almost looked disinterested.
Indeed.
In the walk up to the ring, he looked like he wished to be in anywhere else other than where he was.
Yeah.
You know.
Quick bit of breaking news that we're just getting here on talkSPORT, and it comes from our story regarding Hugo Ekitike at Liverpool. Liverpool and Frankfurt have now agreed a deal in principle for Hugo Ekitike. £69 million fixed, £10.8 million in potential add-ons based on player and team performance. Just getting news that's €92.5 million, and he is set for a medical this week. So breaking news in the last few moments that Liverpool have reached an agreement for Hugo Ekitike of Eintracht Frankfurt. You are listening to Matterface, Jordan and Warnock on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. We'll have more from the former three-weight world champion Duke McKenzie next on the programme. At 21 minutes to go is a brand new weekly podcast from Andy Goldstein and Jason Cundy, and it is out now. Each week, the former late-night duo will offer a flavour of the good old days in a no-holds-barred show that is exactly 21 minutes. Episode 2 was released this morning. New episodes out every single Monday, and you can download them wherever you get your podcasts from. Duke McKenzie, the former three-weight world champion boxer, is in the studio reflecting on the weekend. And this is Frank Warren, who is Tyson Fury's promoter, as well as Daniel Dubois. He was on the station recently, and he had to talk about the possibility of Fury still fighting Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, well, I understand that. I mean, we both understand that, and it's a fight that, hasn't taken place, which has been talked about and everybody's wanted to see for years and years. But at the moment, Tyson's in a good place. He's enjoying life, and He's starting this new Netflix series, which they started filming now. So we'll see what happens. And AJ, as Frank just said, he's had some surgery, so he's going to be out. Was it until Christmas?
I think last part of the year.
Yeah, last part of the year. So let's see what happens. You know, Tyson's. You know, the one thing about him, he's in the gym all the time. He's training hard. He enjoys training. We'll see where it goes. But as it stands at this moment, you know, there's been no discussions for the fight with him.
Frank Warren and Frank Smith there speaking about the possibility of the fight that I think everyone's been talking about for about 15 years. Turki Al El Sheikh also confirmed that the fight is in the works, which potentially could take place in 2026. It's clearly a few years too late. What sort of spectacle we're going to get if it happens?
Well, you know, listen, they're both past their sell-by date. Let's get that right. And I feel that should they fight, then it's not going to be nowhere near as good as it would have been 5 years ago. But it's still a good fight because somebody will get knocked out. Neither of them hold a great shot. So, like I say, there's a lot of fragilities in both of them. The question has to be asked is who turns up on the night.
I thought it was interesting that Tyson was reiterating the fact that he was the only person who could beat Alexander Usyk, saying that he won the two fights.
Well, yeah, he says he's watched it 250. Let it go, Tyson. He said watch it 250 times and comes out with the fact that he won, which is absurd. But the interesting thing is to watch the landscape changing with the conversations about Jake Paul and things of that nature with Eddie and I think you're starting to see the Saudi money starting to dry up a little bit because I think there's a different dynamic coming along, and so there's a need to create different outcomes. The scale of fights are finding the natural level again. There's no way the money that Usyk and Dubois got was anywhere near the kind of money that's been thrown around in recent times.
But you know, like with those two, from a layman, Joshua and Fury. That would be the fight. If it's in 2 years' time, even if they've gone past the sell-by day, it would sell everything. It would sell everything.
It was interesting. I was listening to Lennox, and I always like to listen to Lennox, and he was talking about the necessity for a Great British Dust-Up, and he compared it to the fight he had with Frank Bruno. Whole different set of affairs. When he fought Frank Bruno, they were both coming up at that time. They were both fighting for world titles. They're both on their journey. This is the other end of the spectrum. This is a spectacle. This is Disneyfication. This is people seeing something they haven't seen, but not seeing the best version of it. When you saw Frank and Lennox, they were probably becoming the best versions of themselves, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely agreed, yeah.
Can I just say Cassius Clay and Joe Frazier were very good at with that fight I watched in black and white telly, I think it was.
But it wasn't pay-per-view, is that what you're saying?
What was it? Sting Like a Bee, what was it?
Float like a bee, yeah.
From one end of the spectrum to the other, though, Jake Paul has been sort of intimating, and actually Gareth A. Davis, who's one of our boxing reporters, big Telegraph columnist as well, was at ringside at the weekend, and he welcomed the prospective bout between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua.
Come on, put some meat on the bones of you and Anthony Joshua. Is it happening or not?
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I want it to happen here. All the odds stacked against me. I believe that I will beat him and shock the world and create one of the biggest upsets in boxing history.
Tyson Fury was saying he put $1 million on you beating Anthony Joshua.
I seen that. He's backing me. He's a smart lad.
Well, it's interesting. Is that about all you can say about it? What's your view on the whole thing?
If you want entertainment, then they make the fight. It's an entertaining fight. People are going to tune in, people are going to buy it, and people are going to watch it. But Jake Paul runs the serious risk of being seriously hurt because Anthony Joshua is a massive puncher. You know, we're not talking about a skilled fighter that's had maybe 10, 15, 20 fights in Jake Paul. You know, he's a YouTube fighter. He's an actor, the guy. Anthony Joshua isn't an actor. And if Anthony Joshua were to fight him, he would be in serious trouble of being seriously
Is that
hurt.
a serious concern? Are you being medically worried about the future of Jake Paul if he gets into a ring with Anthony Joshua? Or is it just boxing pushing back on the new Disneyfication of the sport?
Not at all. If Anthony Joshua connected on Jake Paul, that man could be hospitalised and he may not. It could end really, really badly for him.
What does that mean then? Does that mean that whoever decides to put on this fight has to be a little bit careful about how they do it, or is
it depends in terms of the fight? I mean, you can have a choreographed exhibition with Mike Tyson on a Zimmer frame, and everyone gets paid. You can have him fighting Julio Cesar Chavez, who was disengaged and old, or you can take Anthony Joshua, who demolished Francis Ngannou, who would demolish Jake Paul, and see what happens to him. If Anthony Joshua goes in to that fight and is serious about that fight, then Jake Paul will get hurt.
Does it
End of
trouble
discussion.
you? Does it trouble you that Eddie Hearn has confirmed that they are actually in talks to have this fight before a possible fight against Fury?
Well, Eddie Hearn's a promoter first and foremost, and he's in the business of making money. I'm not so sure he's even thinking about anybody's, getting hurt or anything like that. That hasn't even entered his head. But it should, because somebody could easily lose their life.
That's quite a concern, isn't it? I mean,
I think so.
that should be the forefront of everybody's mind.
I think so. I think there's the fight business, and then there's the fight game, and the way they're talking about it, they're talking about it like it's a game. I don't think Anthony Joshua would take Jake Paul lightly, any way, shape, or form, and it'd be so easy to hit. You're talking about a trained athlete against a wannabe.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? We all sit here and we pontificate on boxing, we all talk about it, but it's only you that's got in the ring and can tell us exactly what it is like to experience that, and the rest of us just sitting on the sidelines.
The people that looked after you, Duke, if they said to you, and you didn't think it was right what they said, would you say something, or would you just take their advice about who you were going to fight and what you're going to do, your training and things like that?
Well, you're reliant on your manager to make the fights for you, but ultimately the decision is yours. If Mickey Dove said to me, "You're fighting King Kong," I'd be like, "Well, actually, Mick, that ain't the right fight for me." Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's but listen, your manager should have your best interests at heart. But like I say, Eddie Hearn is a promoter first and foremost, and he's thinking about promoting his brand and making as much money as he can.
Not that we need to promote it because we had such a good weekend with Talk Boxing, but Lawrence Okoli is going to be on with you a little bit later today, Joe Parker as well. But Lawrence Okoli retaining his WBC silver heavyweight title by beating Kevin Lerena by unanimous decision on the undercard. What's next for him?
I think it's a good win. I think a lot of it will be made of the fact that stylistically people might not have enjoyed it as much as they could have done, but Lerena was negated completely, and Lerena was made to look a little bit one-dimensional, and he's given a lot of people a lot of trouble. He gave Dubois a lot of trouble, and he didn't give Lawrence Okoli that much trouble. And whilst you didn't see a show-real knockout from Lawrence, the fact that he made Lerena look as pedestrian as he did is a credit to Lawrence, actually.
Yeah. Lawrence is very awkward. He's tall, he's rangy, he's gamely. He's got a very awkward kind of a style. It's an unattractive style, but it's an effective style nonetheless. He gets the results.
Where are you on his conditioning? He's grown, put a lot of weight on.
Put a load of weight on.
But his body hasn't conditioned it into itself, has it? What do you think to that?
Listen, it takes time to fill out into the full heavyweight structure, obviously. But Simon, he
looked watery, didn't he?
He did look very, very watery. I don't know. I'd have to question his power at that weight, because he hit that guy with everything at the kitchen sink and couldn't put him away. So he will
hurt a bicep though, isn't he?
Sorry,
he hurt a bicep, isn't he?
Yeah, hurt his bicep. Listen, you can say that was one of the reasons why he didn't put the guy away, but then again, you could say the opposite.
He's a number one ranked WBC fighter now. I mean, the WBC is what it is, isn't it? We've got 47-year-old Manny Pacquiao fighting, who, by the way, won that fight. Yeah. But the fact is that he's now
technically draw.
He won that fight. He's now the number one WBC ranked, and with the belts and what's happening with the belts, who knows what's going to happen next? The one I want to see is Ajit Kabial. That's who I want to see.
Yeah. There's one or two young guys, like say Moses Atalma. He's coming through. Cabello, as Simon's just mentioned. There's one or two young guys that are coming through, and But I think just going back to Daniel Dubois, he'll come again. He's got to rebuild, obviously, but I think he'll come again. He's young enough.
Okay. talkSPORT YouTube boxing channel, Talk Boxing. You'll be on that a little bit later on with your podcast as well. Looking forward to that. It's a video show. It's on YouTube. Check out our talkSPORT boxing page. Subscribe to it and you'll get all the best of the boxing action. We're going to be talking about Thomas Frank's start to life as Spurs manager next. Intriguing first pre-match press conference for him before the win at Reading. Duke, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks,
Appreciate that. See you soon. Neil Warnock and Simon Jordan are with me through to 1.
For Gareth Bale, it was Wales, golf, then Madrid. For Scotty Scheffler, it's faith, family, then golf. And Andrew Beef Johnson is in awe of the new Open champions' mentality.
As a sportsman, I think, again, you fall into a trap of it becomes sort of like it's the most important thing. He can sort of separate himself from it being of that importance, and I think it's such a mental power.
Eddie Jones says the Wallabies have to make the game more unstructured from the get-go if they're to have any hope against the Lions in the second test at Melbourne. His favourite non-biological son, Owen Farrell, will captain the midweek side tomorrow, and Eddie says he'll be the perfect man.
For those guys who haven't played in the first test, for them to have a good performance in that game will make them feel like they're still contributing to the tour, and I think that's going to be pretty important.
And after making Daniel Dubois look non-league at Wembley on Saturday, Alexander Usyk has got to rank in the all-time top 10. That's the view of Fight Night presenter Adam Cattrall.
I know there's other champions out there in the modern day that are stepping up in weight and doing multi-weight championships. But if you think about it, the gap between cruiserweight and who he's fighting is absolutely gigantic. Cruiserweight limit is 200 pounds. He's now fighting guys at 260, 270, and he's not just beating them once. He's then going back and beating them more conclusively a second time.
Yeah.
And again, he's still doing it all the way from home.
It's talkSPORT, Sam Matterface with Simon Jordan, and we've got Neil Warnock in the studio with us as well, but it's now time to catch up with the latest odds, all thanks to BetMGM.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+gambleaware.org.
And I'm delighted to say that Matt Gibson from BetMGM is here to look at today's top sporting stories and discuss the latest odds as well. Matt, Scotty Scheffler was rather impressive at the Open over the weekend.
Yeah, morning fellas, he was superb, wasn't he? Got to Saturday night and he was a few in front. He just thought kind of inevitable that he gets it over the line. Need miracles from the chasing pack to even put an ounce of pressure on him. But in the end, pretty comfortable winning by 4. We just we looked at some of his stats over the last few years in majors. He's 111 under par since majors from the beginning of 2020, which is about 40 odd shots better than anyone else in the game. So he is the man to beat in majors. The only chink in his armour we found was actually his Ryder Cup record isn't that strong. He was 1 point from 4 in Rome, and they came in the form of a couple of halves. He actually didn't win a game at Marco Simone last time out, and he was obviously involved in that record win for the Europeans. Aberg and Hovland beat him and Brooks Koepka 9-7 last time in Rome. Looking forward to the Ryder Cup this time, 2 months away from kickoff. USA big faves at 8-11, 12-1 the draw, 11-8 for Team Europe. His record in Rome wasn't very good, but if he plays anything like he did at Portrush, you got to feel for any European who draws him out of the hat in New York.
Let's take you down under. The Lions 1-0 up against the Wallabies in tests after a 29-17 victory over the weekend, and actually they eased off second half and they could have been miles away. It was a bit of a mismatch, really. So where's the value?
Well, there's not a great deal if you're a Lions backer, to be honest with you. I felt the same as you, Sam. 27-19 was probably a little bit closer than the game. The way the game actually went, particularly in the first half, I thought the lads were superb. They're 11-50 to win the test in Melbourne. There'll be 100,000 in the MCG for that one. The 4-9 to win the series 3-0. That was even money on Friday. So everyone's expecting a Lions whitewash here. So a little bit of resistance from the Australians would be good to try and make a fist of it. But bookies are predicting a whitewash, mate.
What about the latest on Neil's former side, Leeds United? A few new signings came in.
Yeah,
0-0 against United in Stockholm on Saturday. I know you've got a big interest in this.
Yeah, as if I need an excuse to talk about Leeds. I saw Neil was on, so I thought I'd mention it to him. Yeah, 0-0 in Stockholm. It looked like two bottom half sides going at it, to be honest. But I don't know how much you can take from pre-season games and stuff like that. Neil,
I think Daniel will do a good job this year. I think he'll show everybody. Because at Norwich, he didn't get a chance. He never had any money when he went up. And yet they said it's down to Daniel's fault, that we're not... And, talking about getting rid of him, weren't they, at the start of the season? Yeah. But I've got a lot of time for him, man. I think he'll do well, especially with that crowd and the backing.
They've signed a couple of a few defenders, left back, Sean Longstaff. You probably watched us quite a bit last year, Neil. Where else do we need to strengthen? Because they're 17 to 20 to go down. So what else do they need to survive in this league?
Well, they've re-signed James, haven't they, just now as well? Dan James. I mean, he's my favourite player in the Championship, mate. So I hope he has a good season. And I just think they've done right signing at the back. I think they were a little bit weak at the back, if I'm honest, for the top flight. So I'm glad he's made it. And I think there's still signings to be made. I think he'll make another couple before the start of the season.
They've signed Lucas Nemecha as well, haven't they, as an out-and-out forward. And they did need that because as well as Joel Peru did last season, they needed someone who could have a bit of cutting edge. And Bamford, obviously, is persona non grata now. So how good is he going to be?
I don't know too much about him. I know he's played at Preston and Middlesbrough, hasn't he? And he didn't really do much for them. And then he's been in Wolfsburg. I think as a fan, the good thing for us is that he's come on a free. He's not set us back a hideous amount of money to maybe not deliver. So with a free transfer, it's kind of low risk, isn't it? But I don't know. I'd like to see a 9 and a 10 through the door. And obviously they need to replace Manor Solomon because he was fantastic for us last year. So maybe a winger as well, but I don't mind the approach of signing defenders, but you need someone to put it in the onion bag as well, don't you?
They had the best wingers in the Championship last season, didn't they? That was one of the reasons why they got over the line. Ramazani's still there, Nonto's still there. James, obviously, we've already mentioned. We'll see what happens. Their game, by the way, their first game in the Premier League, back in the Premier League, live on talkSPORT, the Monday Night Football. We're going to Ellen Road on the first weekend of the season for that. Cheers, Matt. Thanks for joining us. That's all thanks to BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Alex Crook has survived a couple of hours on the beach without getting himself into trouble. He's emerged from the water to tell us that talkSPORT understands that Ashley Young is set to join Ipswich Town. And Watford were keen to re-sign him and maybe even make him captain, but ultimately his wage demands did not fit their structure. But he is going to sign for Ipswich Town. Are you surprised at 40 years of age that Ashley Young is still going strong and set to play a season in the Championship?
I think to be fair, I think he's got better. He's been like a good bottle of wine, Ashley. I think he's got better defensively as he's got older. And I think when Kieran looks at his squad, he's losing Semi Morsi and one or two experienced lads. I think he'll need something like that. And even if he's not playing every game, I think he needs somebody like that in the dressing room. He's been a great pro.
Yeah, just a quick word on that, because Sam Morsi, the captain, has completed his move to Kuwait, 2-year contract. So he is off, and he has been replaced by Ashley Young, who may well end up taking up a leadership role there as well. Right, let's talk a little bit about Thomas Frank, because he's taken up a new leadership role this summer. He's the new head coach at Tottenham Hotspur. They beat Reading 2-0 at the Select Car Leasing Stadium on Saturday, thanks to goals from Will Lancashire and Luka Vuskovic. Ahead of the game, the new Spurs boss spoke about the jeopardy surrounding taking the job.
I like to challenge myself. I've been that privileged. I've never been sacked before, so that's one of the reasons why I took the job. So I could get a little bit more risk into my daily life. Coming to a big club, there's pressures. There's we need to perform because it is we. It's me, it's the staff, it's the players, it's everyone, and we need to do that together. I like the ambitions, and I'm everything I do, every decision I made so far, everything is for the long term. It's not about surviving one game or 1 year or 18 months or what is the average. No, it's for the long run.
Do you know what? I've seen different interpretations of this press conference. So I watched the whole thing, and I know that some people say he looks quite tense or he doesn't look particularly comfortable. I got the complete opposite view, and I thought that the joke that he made towards the end was about sort of, almost making light of the fact that so many of his predecessors had been on the chopping board. How did you view it?
Well, I think he just knows it's a challenge, isn't it? And I think it's a good time to come in. Because he'll get the back lads defensively. He'll get them more organised and harder to beat, and hope that the players can still create things. But he'll not have worked. Having been at Brentford, he'll not have worked with Daniel Levy before. And trust me, it's a lot harder. When you look at me looking at Simon now, are you with me? I mean, he was one of my chairmen, and you know how difficult it is on this programme, don't you, to look after him? So you can. I'm telling you, Daniel.
I'm only here because I'm the only one who volunteers.
Daniel Levy is not the easiest of guys to. So I think before the season starts, managers are relaxed at your press conferences, and the grass is green, and you've never lost a game, and life's rosy. But during the season, there'll be times where you look at his press conferences and it'll be entirely different.
What do you make of the joke? Was it a show of tension, or was it sort of actually trying to lighten the mood a little bit?
Sometimes you say something to lighten the subject doesn't mean the subject's taken lightly. The angle of attack was that you're going into a different environment. The questions were being loaded and expected. Do you expect the challenges that comes with working for Daniel Levy? He's not playing Daniel Levy on a Saturday afternoon. He's playing other teams. And if he produces a side that wins, then he'll have no problems with his owner. If he produces a team that has a style about it, he'll have no problem with the fans. If you win with style, then you'll have something that you can hang on to. It's about what Spurs are going to become under Thomas Frank, how he adapts to a set of circumstances that are completely alien to where he's been. He came out of Brentford. He was part of a succession programme into Brentford. And built into the infrastructure of it. Tottenham are a whole different set of animals. They've got expectation, they've got a huge football club with reputation attached to it, they've got a stadium of fans that expect to be entertained, and they've got a group of players that last year I don't think covered themselves in glory, despite the fact they won the Europa League in the battle of who could be the worst team in the Premier League to win a European competition.
They have signed Mohamed Kudus, which might upgrade their attacking options. Apart from his qualities, Frank actually also praised the board for getting him in early in pre-season during that press conference. How important is that for a manager?
I think it's great to have your players in, early doors where you can probably go away and you can mix more with the team, not just on the field but off it as well. Because the dressing room gets you through the winter months when things aren't going so well. So I just think it's good, and it's nice to see him dipping his hand in his pocket really and signing these players. I think he would have liked Mbon, the lad who's gone to Man. I think he would have liked him because he knows him, and it's great to have somebody in the dressing room that you've worked with for years. But they're not bad players that they've signed, so it's promises well. I'm looking on with interest at that one, because of what happened to Ange in that respect. But he's a solid appointment, and they were brave Brentford when they gave him the job in the first place, and again now they've given Keith Andrews.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because that bravery is extended to their former set piece coach Keith Andrews, or experienced player, and actually experienced coach as well, and he's done all of his licenses and he's been through different clubs learning his trade. Are you surprised that a man who's never managed in the Premier League before, in fact never had a frontline job before as a manager, can get a role as a head coach in the Premier League?
Absolutely, yeah, because I'm astonished, if I'm honest, at the level that we're talking about. But they went from within last time, so they think that they're going to keep all the staff in place, I would imagine. And Keith was a good player, steady player, and a nice lad. So he'll have to learn quickly, because, like I say, at this time of the year, everything's rosy. But he's got a lot to live up to with what they did last year. Can he keep them up there? I mean, they've got a decent squad now. They have a decent team. So
lost their captain, haven't they?
Yeah,
lost their captain to Arsenal.
Lost Norgard, lost Mbermo. Vissa's been linked with moves away as well.
I mean, he'll have to build, and it's not easy when you come in as a manager like Keith, who's never managed before, to get the money that they want to sign better players or players as good as what's just gone.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, he won't be doing that though, will he? I mean, the fact is, if it was anybody other than Matthew Benham or Tony Bloom employing a 31-year-old manager from Germany, or Matthew Benham employing this guy, you'd say, can't see the thinking behind that. There's a lot of risk. I mean, Martin O'Neill will sit in the studio because of the vitriol he's got towards Keith Andrews. Keith Andrews endlessly criticised him when he was Republic of Ireland manager, and say
about set pieces. Actually,
it's some reality for you getting the big job. I mean, look, the more fascinating job for me is the one that Neil was alluding to. I would love to know what the brief is for Thomas Frank, because Daniel has gotten rid of Postecoglou. I think deservedly so for Ange, because I think that you cannot go through a season where they were so chaotic and so poor in the Premier League and look at it and go, well, you've shown me. If someone shows you themselves, believe them. He showed a certain style of management that wasn't going to get Tottenham very far. They won a Europa League in a competition that they should have won because it was a poor Europa League, and in the final they played a very poor Man United. So Tottenham got the monkey off their back. But I think they were right to get rid of Ange Postecoglou. But the thing for me is, what has Thomas Frank been told he's got to do? What is the standard that he's going to be judged by? That's the thing that I'm really interested to ascertain. We're not going to know it because he's never going to say it. But it must be top four.
Well, one of the things, I was just looking at the statement that they released when they sacked Ange Postecoglou, because I think there was an indication in there of what they wanted. He said that this is the board statement of why they decided to sack him. It was following a positive start. We recorded 78 points from our last 66 Premier League games. That's our worst ever Premier League finish. At times there were extenuating circumstances, blah, blah, blah. Whilst winning the Europa League this season ranks as one of the club's greatest moments, we cannot base our decision on emotions aligned to this triumph. It is crucial that we are able to compete on multiple fronts and believe a change of approach will give us the strongest chance for the coming season and beyond. This has been one of the toughest decisions we have to know, not one we've made lightly. So they obviously want to be able to compete on not just for the Europa League and then say halfway through we'll have to sack off the Premier League in order to do it. We might come back to that in the next few minutes. You're listening to talkSPORT. It is White and Jordan with Sam Matterface, Simon Jordan and Neil Warnock today with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. It's talkSPORT, Sam Matterface with Simon Jordan. We got Neil Warnock in the studio this morning. We were just talking about Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham Hotspur, and we sort of run out of a bit of time. So, were you surprised when Ange got sacked?
I was in a way, but I was really pleased.
He got sacked.
Really pleased, yeah, because I know Nick Montgomery, who coached for him.
Yeah.
And after they won the cup, the Euro, whatever they call it, the Mickey Mouse Cup.
The Europa League.
Yeah, the Europa League. I texted him.
How is that the Mickey Mouse Cup?
Well, sorry, I texted him and I said to Nick, congratulations. Tell Ange I'm really pleased for him. I hope you do get the sack now. And I said, because the first 3 games next season, if you lose them, you will absolutely get murdered. So I hope you get the sack, because you get a nice new club now and you've won a competition. That's how I felt.
So you're delighted that he got the sack because they'll get other jobs. Whereas if they stayed in place,
they'd get crucified.
Right. Okay.
If they lost the first 3 or 4 games.
Do you think he won't get another Premier League job?
No, he'll not be in England. I don't think he'll be in England.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about, even now when I talk with Nick, you've got to have a plan B if things aren't working.
What do you think? I mean, I used to sit in the studio, and I think Danny Murphy's quite a keen observer, and he's not overly critical, but he was very robust on the ineptitude of the tactical decisions that were being made and the lack of organisation that Spurs had in transition.
Yeah.
Were you in that space with Ange?
Yeah.
Were you surprised? Because he came... I liked him. I like his reputation. I like the way he approached the media at times. I think sometimes he said silly things in the media that made him a hostage to fortune and made an enemy of the media. But were you surprised at what seemed to be a lack of technical or tactical adaptations at times?
I think where he's been in the past, he's been able to get away with that in the respect. I'm not being that disrespectful, but I think here,
at Celtic,
you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a plan B, and I don't think he had a plan B. I mean, defensive. You'd be winning a couple of 2-0 or what have you, and he'd be still flying out, and rather than the top teams. You don't lose a game when you're winning 2-0. You come out on top, whatever it is. And he never seemed to have that. He didn't have a look at the other side of a game and tactically how he could shut shop up. And I thought he did that in the final.
He did.
I'm honest.
He did it brilliantly.
For the first time.
No, he did it in Frankfurt as well.
Frankfurt as well. He did it in Europa League, didn't he?
Yeah. And so, he said he were concentrating on that, and so good luck to him. And I hope he does get another job, because I think he's a character. I like him. So,
talking of characters, obviously you're a big character in the game, and you've got a new show, haven't you? Aren't you doing a Palladium show soon?
Oh, yeah, we're doing... I've come because Simon's coming on the show as well.
Because it's not a one-man show.
Well, it is really, but I've got to invite him because my best time when I was at Sheffield.
Is he the promoter?
He's the promoter. When I was at Sheffield, I used to think to myself when I was managing. I managed at Notts County and a few other clubs, and I used to think I'll never ever go below Watford, because below Watford is the pits. I thought I can't be managing London. I can't be managing down south. And then when he come on and said it, so I really enjoyed that. And the show, I say it's a show. I just talk about my stories from the past, and there's so many funny ones that I've not been able to probably say, and I've not done another book. And I've really enjoyed the programmes in the evening. It's different stories of when I was in Premier League, but also non-league, and it sort of catches the eyes. And there's not a lot going on at the minute, so you might as well come and watch me, haven't you, really?
Is it cheaper to come to watch you than it is to go to one of those big concerts?
I've no idea, actually, but Palladium's good. I'm doing the Manchester Opera House.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, and
that's up by me.
Oh, well, you must come to that.
I will.
I'm doing that, and then I'm finishing at Ashton Gate at Bristol, because I've been fined that many times against Bristol City by the FA.
Which is your bloody fault. If you accuse the referees of being on drugs and all that kind of stuff.
Well, what about that day?
I remember
that day when what did they call it? Who scored?
I can't remember who scored, but they scored a goal there was a corner given when the injury time had finished.
Oh, that one. Sorry, I'm talking another story.
Freddie Sears.
I'm talking Freddie Sears when we scored a great goal at Bristol.
Hit the advertising board behind
the advertising board and come out. And the only people that didn't see it were the referee and linesman. And it was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then
who was the referee? Was that Stuart Atwell? The ghost goal, was
probably.
But this, Neil's doing a tour. He's been doing a tour for a while, and it's a good show. So he phoned me up and said, "Look, Chairman, would you come on show with me?" Now, I wouldn't. Wild horses normally wouldn't drag me to these sort of things, but I think it'll be fun because he and I get on very well. It was the time that I enjoyed ownership the most because I worked very clearly with him. and he was very easy to work with, and we had periods of success and we had opportunities, and probably if Ben Watson hadn't hit a penalty, hadn't hit the post in the second leg against Bristol City, we'd be sitting here now in a very different space. But it'll be fun and it'll be a good show because he's got a raft of experiences. He's been around the game, and there's some very interesting stories, and I'll add some value apparently.
But you're not doing the Manchester one. You're just doing.
No, I'm doing the London Palladium.
I don't want him on the Manchester one. I only want him on the London one.
He wants me in London.
You have your hand held in London, do you? Is that
yeah,
right?
but not just Crystal Palace. I had a good time at QPR.
Yeah, of course.
So I've got a few of the players coming from QPR. I've been trying to get hold of Adel Turab, but he'll probably turn up late.
Adel.
Yeah.
Crikey. You had your hands full there, that's for sure. But he also got you promoted, didn't he? He was fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, it was Rob Shoebridge, the referee in that game. Sorry, I've said it was Stuart Atwell. It was the one.
Don't worry, it's just as bad.
the one that got you charged was the 1-1 draw at Bristol City in the January game on a television. When you went on television and you accused the referee of being on drugs.
But you've got more.
And then you wrote it in your reports. And I said to you, "Can we get rid of that, please? Because I'll be paying a massive fine."
That's one of my stories, though.
You have got more legitimacy to criticise referees than most people, though, because you are, of course, a qualified referee.
Yeah, I know. I mean, dearie me, I shudder at the moment when I look at the referees in the Premier League, because we've always had, for me, top referees in the Premier League.
They've identified some new talent now, haven't they?
Well, you say that, but I thought some of the referees in the Championship were diabolical, and they're in the Premier League now. So I honestly haven't got a lot of, I think the people that coach them have got a difficult job.
Yeah,
if I'm honest.
The laws of the game are difficult now. The book's ridiculous.
And VAR's made them lazy. VAR made them lazy now because they don't give things because they think, well, VAR will tell me if I'm wrong or confirm this, and I think it stopped them from being as they are.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you on that because later on the programme we're going to discuss a possible law change and I want to get your views on that. But we've got to break for the news and we are going to be discussing the statement that the Lionesses made this weekend. Defender Jess Carter, the subject of racism that she's received on social media during the Women's Euros. We'll discuss that next. This is talkSPORT.
For Gareth Bale, it was Wales, golf, then Madrid. For Scotty Scheffler, it's faith, family, then golf. And Andrew Beef Johnson is in awe of the new Open champions' mentality.
As a sportsman, I think, again, you fall into a trap of it becomes sort of like it's the most important thing in the world. And don't get me wrong, from what I've heard, it is important to him. He can sort of separate himself from it being of that importance, and I think it's such a mental power.
Scheffler said he looks forward to heading home for some of his favourite Chipotle at a restaurant in Texas where no one recognises him. The Lionesses will refuse to take the knee prior to their Euro semi-final with Italy, claiming the gestures lost its impact. Yesterday, Jess Carter, the centre-back, revealed she'd been targeted with racial abuse on social media and she's leaving all platforms. Eddie Jones says the Wallabies have to make the game more unstructured from the get-go if they're to have any hope against the Lions in the second test at Melbourne. His favourite non-biological son, Owen Farrell, will captain the midweek side tomorrow, and Eddie says he'll be the perfect man for the job.
He's played 100 tests, scored the second most points for England. You know, he'll enjoy that opportunity to keep the Lions on the front foot during the tour, because for those guys who haven't played in the first test, for them to have a good performance in that game will make them feel like they're still contributing to the tour, and I think that's going to be pretty important.
Correction, Eddie. Farrell is England's #1 point scorer of all time after surpassing Wilkinson's tally at the last World Cup. And after making Daniel Dubois look non-league at Wembley on Saturday, Alexander Usyk has got to rank in the all-time top 10. That's the view of finite presenter Adam Cattrall.
I know that there's other champions out there in the modern day that are stepping up in weight and doing multi-weight championships. But if you think about it, the gap between cruiserweight and who he's fighting is absolutely gigantic. Cruiserweight limit is 200 pounds. He's now fighting guys at 260, 270. And he's not just beating them once. He's then going back and beating them more conclusively a second time.
Yeah.
And again, he's still doing it all the way from home.
Listen to comprehensive analysis on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel.
It's talkSPORT, it's Sam Matterface with it's Simon Jordan, and we've got Neil Warnock in the studio this morning. And Neil's, you've had to deal with a lot of different situations when it comes to players and teams, and interestingly, Serena Wigman has had to deal with quite a bit this last week, with Jess Carter releasing a statement about the racist abuse that she suffered on social media. England working with the police after she revealed she'd been targeted or the target of racist abuse during Euro 2025. The Lionesses said in a statement they would stop the anti-racism gesture of taking the knee before matches. It's clear we and football need to find another way to tackle racism. She made a statement which sort of goes into the details of it starting at the beginning of the tournament. And while she says that she thinks everyone is entitled to their opinion on performance and on result, she doesn't agree or think that it's okay to target someone's appearance or race. As a result of this, I'll be taking a step back from social media and leaving it for the team to deal with. Look, players can be criticised. It's part of the game. Yeah. Carter has had one or two instances in the course of the first few weeks of the tournament, and you want scrutiny in those moments because you want to hold the players to account, but there should never, ever, ever be a racial element to criticism. And sadly, it's a case of what happens, I think, when you get more exposure, isn't it?
Well, it's a case of what happens in society as a result of there is racism in all walks of life. And to suggest that football needs to do more to combat it ignores the fact that football has been quite successful in eliminating large proportions of racism and attacking it very vigorously and very rigorously. I don't think the game structurally is beset with racism. I don't think the players and their opportunities are hindered by prejudice. I think society has challenges. There's racism in all communities. So to suggest that the game needs to do more, it should never rest on its laurels. It should always focus on the fact that any discrimination of any shape or form needs to be attended to. But when you look at the journey that it's been on, from where it may have been, and I'm not saying that you start with a very low standard.
There's no comparison, is there?
There's no comparison.
No.
To make statements along the line that ultimately football isn't doing enough, I think is slightly unfair. There are sections
well, if we still have racism that permeates through our football players, and we clearly aren't doing enough,
well,
are we?
let's correct that statement. It doesn't pervade through our football players. It might pervade through certain sections of society that are hiding behind anonymity on social media.
Correct. So how do you protect people against that?
Well, well, to some extent, you can't. Because if you, in the same way,
can the people that run these big media,
you can deny anonymity, which more often than not, the so-called racists are hiding behind anonymity.
Keyboard warriors, aren't they?
Yeah, and they don't have the courage to say in the market square what they would say on social media from a platform that can identify them. So I would always be in the camp of removing anonymity, except in the case of special circumstances like charities and so on and so forth, or special cases where people need to have anonymity. But the concern for me is about the categorisation of how racism is being looked at through the sport, and to suggest that the sport has to do more than it's already doing. We cannot operate we didn't get zero COVID, we won't get net zero in this world, and we won't get net ignorance in terms of net zero approach to it. You will always have a section of every community, whether it's the black community, the white community, the Asian community, that has racists within it. Now, if you're predominantly a white country, you're going to have an element of racism in certain sections of that particular society. And numerically, you've got 80% of people in this country are white. You're going to have, statistically or numerically, more racists in that particular community. But we have to look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think football takes a very strident approach to it. But football is no different to society. And now I understand they want to come off social media. I absolutely condemn any idea that any discrimination is something that people should have to endure. I do also want to suggest that people have to be relatively resilient about what people say to them and have to overcome that to some extent, not ignore it, not condone it, not excuse it. If coming off social media helps you to achieve it, if identifying it through social media platforms and consequencing people, which I think they try to do, any kind of discrimination, whether it's tragedy charting, whether it's homophobic...
But no one should have to deal with racist abuse.
No, they shouldn't. But we don't live in an ideal world.
So should they, as a group, come off social media? Should they have been on it in the first place? Do the benefits actually give you enough to outweigh the negativity that can also permeate through? As a manager, what would you do?
I tried for ages to keep my lads off social media because, you know, I know it sounds silly, but they usually get more abuse when they've had a bad game or done something wrong, give a penalty away or what have you. And so I just said I don't see any benefit from it other than, you know.
Well, they will say that the benefits are the brands will come to them as their following increases, and they will earn commercially as a result of it, which is true. But
well, they can't have it always, can they? You know, if they're on that platform, you know, I think nobody condones anything that they said, and I hope they get prosecuted, mate. But I, you know, for me, if I were her, I wouldn't even bother going on it.
You're on it and you use it. Would you have used it as a Premier League manager?
Would I use it as a Premier League manager? Well, I do it for a bit of fun now, mate. I do it to almost laugh at myself. You know, some of the antics I get with my son. Will we do golfing things and all sorts of things? But I think there's a time for it. I like to put forward things what I want to say, and you know, people look at it. So you know, it's here to stay, isn't it? So. I don't know. I think Simon's the one who's just filled it all in about everything, and he's right. It's society, isn't it, that's to blame with everything.
That's why I'm not pushing back against the notion that people should be castigated and consequenced for saying inappropriate things and saying things that are predicated upon discrimination. I'm pushing against the notion that we live in this utopian world where it won't continue to exist and football gets whacked around the head because instances happen to football players. And that's my thing.
But they are football players, so they're giving you the viewpoint from a football player's perspective.
But what I don't want to continue to allow to be the messaging is that football doesn't do its fair share of the heavy lifting, because I get tired of football being used as a poster boy for fixing society's ills.
Does it say fair share, or do we say enough? And enough is never going to be enough.
Yeah, exactly. So setting it an unfair set of standards. So I don't want to see football having to light up stadiums with LGBT flags. I don't think it's necessary. I think football is a game for entertainment. I think that ultimately football has a very strong stance on anti-discrimination. I'm not entirely sure what else it can do. It doesn't run the social media platforms. It's not in control of those sort of environments. And whether the social media platforms can do something more, whether they're considered to be publishers rather than just platforms, is a different discussion. Section 230 in America is one of those arguments that's being constantly had about whether a platform is a publisher and it should be accountable for what goes on it. Can they do more? Yes. Are they doing more? Yes. But when the conversation gets framed through the prism of football needs to do something more, okay, well, tell me what that is.
Well, let's see what the players think about it. Lucy Bronze has been speaking to us over the course of the last few hours, and she says that players are getting more abuse as the women's game grows.
The social media platforms need to be held accountable more so. We know that millions of people are interacting daily, but there can be more that can be done. People need to be held accountable for their actions, whether it's in person or online. The abuse is not okay, racism is not okay. I think more can be done and more should be done, and especially those individuals as well. They shouldn't be allowed to just sit at home, write whatever they want and just go on with their lives. They should be held accountable, and I think there's more that we can be done.
Is she correct in her assessment? More that can be done?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've seen the police. We live in a society where police do police tweets, and people knock on people's doors for tweets. People go to prison for sending tweets out in recent times. The big thing for me has always been anonymity and accountability. In terms, we have also seen in many a times that bots are part of the equation and overseas influences. So when we start seeing about the society that we live in, we saw during the Euros that a significant proportion of the traffic that was derisory and discriminatory against Bakary Saka was not from this country, it's from overseas. So we have to get the balance right, and we also have to accept, because we do live in a society, and I'm not suggesting that this is an instance of this, where there is discrimination and there's criticism. People don't like to be criticised. So if you get criticised on social media, it's not the same as being discriminated against. And so whilst Lucy was talking about the fact that there was more abuse coming, I sometimes think that people like to categorise abuse as something you don't like to hear. If it's racial, it's abuse. If someone's saying you're crap, it's an opinion. And unfortunately, that goes with the territory.
Well, Jess Carter has reported the fact that she's suffered racist abuse.
I'm not talking about Jess. I'm talking about what Lucy Bron said about abuse. We're getting more and more abuse on social media. Now, if that abuse is distilled down to racial discrimination, absolutely all day, identify the people that are doing it and try and consequence if you can. If you're now complaining about more people are watching you and more people are saying that you're not very good at something, that's not abuse. That's an opinion. You might not like it and you might not appreciate it, but it goes with the territory. And we all know that social media is a cesspit. My biggest reaction to my children is, quite frankly, don't go on there.
Do you know
and
what?
By the way, take notes of total strangers.
That's really interesting, because like the French manager, and I think it's a little bit of an outdated approach actually, Laurent Bonnadet, was desperate to improve the image of the women's team in France over the course of this period. So he convinced his players to be a bit more open and share more and open themselves up to the public. He almost took like the Gareth Southgate approach to sort of how he ran the England team in 2018, where he wanted to reunite the fans with the shirt. But social media in 2025 is a completely different place than it was 7 years ago. And I think they felt a bit of a backlash as well, especially after Saturday evening's performance. And it feels a little bit outdated that they should be using it themselves. Maybe it needs to be done in a more controlled manner.
I mean, in general, when I look back at my time and I look now, I don't envy the young kids today. I don't envy the young ladies and gentlemen that play football or any other sport, really. Because, you've only got to look. When we grew up, we wanted our kids to have things that we didn't have. So we wanted them to have a computer or a telephone or this, that and the other. Now they've got everything. And when I go out now, I go on a train or something like yesterday. I went on a train and it was chock-a-block. And I looked around as I was sat on that train, and there were 4 tables. Every one on those tables were full because there were a cancellation, and every one were on the phone everywhere. And the kids were there flicking on the games and then the other things. And I'm just thinking, everybody stopped talking now, haven't they? They've stopped getting involvement now.
But that comes from parenting. I mean, when children are introduced to social media and the guidelines around it, parenting is a big part of it. I accept that not every parent, every family is constituted with a father and a mother or whatever else it is and has the structure to be able to give it. But when children are introduced to technology and introduced to social media, it's the parents' responsibility to make sure that the guidelines around it are there so that they do activity, they can go on their phones, but they go out and do football, they play cricket or tennis and get involved in life rather than bury their phone in a social media platform, finding nothing meaningful to learn from.
They have made the decision, the Lionesses, not to take the knee ahead of the game against Italy. It's something they've been doing in this European Championship.
Middlesbrough did that, so they refused to take the knee eventually with some of the criticism that they had. And that was racial as well.
Yeah. What was the reason behind it? The fact they were getting criticism.
They didn't agree with the people that were putting it on to that asked him to take the knee. They didn't agree with that. I forget what group it was.
But I never agreed with taking the knee.
No, they didn't agree with
I thought it was ideologically flawed based upon the fact it was a gesture associated with an organisation that is now subsequently been discredited. But also, you know, you've got a group of footballers that are in a space that are very much in an industry that facilitates an anti-discrimination policy. So who are you telling? Who are you telling about discrimination? Who are you telling about your society? You're telling the society. So I never agreed with it, and I don't accept and never have accepted that this country is institutionally and systemically racist. I think it has elements of racism, and I think there are elements of localised racism that need to be identified and accountable, and people need to be consequenced for it. But I didn't appreciate the idea that a group of highly privileged footballers tell me that my society is institutionally racist, because that's what that gesture stood for. That's what it stood for. And that's what the player said it stood for. There was no subtlety about it. It came from America on the back of the reality of what happened over in America. It happened on the back of George Floyd. It got turned into something very different, and we have a society that's very different to America. So whilst there is discrimination and whilst there's racism, it needs to be tackled and needs to be addressed. I don't much appreciate a group of footballers taking the knee, telling me about the society I live in.
Well, there's one thing that is true, is that Jessica Carter feels as if she has been racially abused, and that's why she won't be, and they won't be participating in that gesture on Tuesday night. The game is live on talkSPORT. You're listening to Matterface, Jordan and Warnock. You're listening to talkSPORT. Selco Builders Warehouse is where the trade go. Next, we'll be looking back at the British and Irish Lions winning their first test down under. We'll speak to former Lion Ben Kay.
all eyes on Brisbane. Here we go, Test match series up and running. The Lions kick off.
The first half performance in general was pretty good by all, really.
Russell with a big ball into midfield. To Ipalatu! Gliding to the right-hand side. The first try of the first Test.
Maybe the most telling statistic of the first half. The Wallabies got into the Lions 22 once.
Jorgensen will take it out of the air, and Jorgensen scores in the right corner. Out of nothing.
The Lions should win. They should have won this. They should have won by 30 points. Tonight, the Lions showed a lot of confidence, and they finished the job.
Hugh Jones combines with Tom Curry. Curry to Dan Sheehan. Try right at the start of the second half. Minute and 15 seconds. Dan Sheehan.
I was a bit disappointed with the Lions in the second half. They almost just looked comfortable and they let the Wallabies back into the game.
It's going to be McDermott. Picks it, goes round the edge and score. Just have that little bit of momentum, the Wallabies.
The Lions have won the first Test match. Full-time Australia 19, British and Irish Lions 27.
It's talkSPORT, and that's the British and Irish Lions who have taken a 1-0 lead in the series. Next Saturday's match at the MCG against Australia, creating an opportunity for them to earn their first series win in 12 years. While for the Wallabies, it's do or die to keep the series alive. And you can hear how that blockbuster unfolds live and exclusive right here on talkSPORT next Saturday. Our coverage starts at 10 a.m. However, before that, the Lions have the small matter of the bruising encounter with the First Nations and Pacifica 15, which will be live and exclusive on talkSPORT 2 tomorrow. Kickoff is at 11 a.m. UK time. Let's speak to Ben Kay, the former British and Irish Lions second row. He joins us now. Hi, Ben.
Morning, guys.
Let's talk about the game on Saturday first. It really felt as if the Lions were sort of physically able to dominate the Wallabies. Where do you think the game was won and lost?
Yeah, I think absolutely that. That first half performance was brutal from the Lions. Every time the Wallabies had the ball and tried to take it to the line, they got smashed backwards, and every time the Lions players had the ball, they seemed to make extra yards in the contact. So that was definitely the key. The big factor, I suppose, and we just played a clip of David Campese saying the Lions should have won it by 30. It's about the only thing I've ever agreed with him on. So, yeah, absolutely. They butchered a few chances, and that let Australia back in. And I guess, from a series perspective and the spectacle, that was a good thing, because the Wallabies did prove that they could play some decent rugby. They could score some tries, but they are going to have to find a lot more physicality from somewhere come Saturday.
Ben, in a way, were you disappointed? Like me, Neil Warnock here. When we play Aussies at cricket, I love to smash them, the Aussies. And I do the same at rugby, but I was disappointed in them on Saturday. I didn't think... Is that wrong to say? I was disappointed that they didn't give us a game.
Hugely disappointing, yeah. And that's been the worry with this tour. And obviously the tours are every 12 years to each individual nation that they go to, South Africa, then New Zealand, and then Australia. So, you are going to get ups and downs in performances, and the Wallabies have been very much on a down over the last few years. And, there was a bit of a worry going into it. I think they lost a couple of players which might make the difference this weekend if they're back fit. As I said, they lost a lot of power, and Will Skelton, he had a calf injury, so wasn't able to play. And Rob Valentini, who's been their player of the year, again, another really powerful player, was missing with an injury. Now, Joe Schmidt, the coach, said if it had been the third test, he would have played them last week, but he wanted to give them that extra week of recovery, knowing that it was a 3-test series. So I think we're all hopeful, for the good of the game and for the good of this tour, that those two players come back in.
Yeah, because Brian Moore suggesting today in one of the papers that it's time to consider alternatives to Australia as a Lions destination. What are your thoughts on that?
It's difficult, and yes, I mean, there are some great places you could go, but there are also problems with it. And I think the point about it being every 12 years, you look at the makeup of the players from the British and Irish Lions. Now, in previous tours, Scotland have hardly had anyone there, but Scotland are riding high at the moment, and a big percentage of that Test team are Scotland's best players. Hardly anyone from Wales, who, back some of Warren Gatland's tours, the Test teams have been filled with Welsh players. So you can never quite say, well, no, we shouldn't go to Australia, because Australia has a huge heritage, been world champions a couple of times, and they've beaten the home nations on multiple occasions. So it's just the planning of it. But having said that, we all would love to see a tour down to Argentina and maybe some of the Pacific Islands, and then the one that's been muted this year, which would be unbelievable but very, very difficult, maybe particularly on the players because of the physicality, would be a tour to France.
Yes, interesting. That was something that he speculated about, and obviously the problem there is you've got players that end up playing against people who they're playing with it week in, week out as well. After the match itself, our reporter Alfie Reynolds spoke to the Lions head coach Andy Farrell about Byrne and Curry, proving the public wrong, I suppose, maybe with their strong performances.
Immense, absolutely immense. Big game players who were probably challenged by a good few, and I think it told a story. I think Tom Curry put in some really nice shot defensively, and Ty Byrne got the turnover very early doors, set the tone really, and I don't think it stopped there. He carried on for the rest of the game. Jack Cohn's carrying was very much on the front foot, wasn't it? So those three guys, I'm sure they'd be delighted with how they responded to selection.
Interesting to see what he does for the second test and whether Andy Farrell makes changes, Ben. The Lions have named their side to play the First Nations and Pacifica 15 on Tuesday. Is this a chance for anyone to shine and put their hand up to be selected, or because of the proximity of the games, is that impossible?
Well, yes, it is. Partly because of injury and fitness. So he's picked three of the guys that were definitely in contention for Tom Curry's shirt in Pollock, Jack Morgan and Josh van der Fleer. They are starting in the back row. Now you throw into the mix that Joe McCarthy, the second row, had to leave the field after 42 minutes with a foot injury. And that probably means that Chesham, who was on the bench, is now going to start in the test. So that then opens the door for one of those players potentially to come in on the bench if they have an amazing performance. I don't think he'll change the back row because they played so well together, unless there's another problem that he needs to solve. There's a couple of other players coming back to fitness. I think James Lowe might be under a bit of pressure. He's been really quiet all tour. And there have been injuries. So we know that Elliot Daly went home, but Mac Hansen's carrying an injury. And also you've got Blair Kinghorn, who's a fullback but can play on the wing as well. So those guys could feature and come into test contention, but he's not going to want to make wholesale changes for a team that looks so good together in that first half.
Ben, thank you very much. Former British and Irish Lions player Ben Kay joining us live ahead of tomorrow's game with the Pacifica 15 and the First Nations and the second test. All of it live only on talkSPORT and the talkSPORT app. If you download the talkSPORT app, you'll have access to all of the matches and some exclusive content as well from the tour. Next, we're going to be looking at the dire situation that Morecambe have found themselves in with their former co-chairman Graham House.
For Gareth Bale, it was Wales, golf, then Madrid. For Scotty Scheffler, it's faith, family, then golf. And Andrew Beef Johnson is in awe of the new Open champions' mentality.
As a sportsman, I think, again, you fall into a trap of it becomes sort of like it's the most important thing. He can sort of separate himself from it being of that importance, and I think it's such a mental power.
Eddie Jones says the Wallabies have to make the game more unstructured from the get-go if they're to have any hope against the Lions in the second test at Melbourne. His favourite non-biological son, Owen Farrell, will captain the midweek side tomorrow, and Eddie says he'll be the perfect man.
For those guys who haven't played in the first test, for them to have a good performance in that game will make them feel like they're still contributing to the tour, and I think that's going to be pretty important.
And after making Daniel Dubois look non-league at Wembley on Saturday, Alexander Usyk has got to rank in the all-time top 10. That's the view of Fight Night presenter Adam Cattrall.
I know there's other champions out there in the modern day that are stepping up in weight and doing multi-weight championships. But if you think about it, the gap between cruiserweight and who he's fighting is absolutely gigantic. Cruiserweight limit is 200 pounds. He's now fighting guys at 260, 270, and he's not just beating them once. He's then going back and beating them more conclusively a second time.
Yeah.
And again, he's still doing it all the way from home.
talkSPORT, Sam Matterface alongside Simon Jordan till 1 o'clock this afternoon. We've got Neil Warnock with us today. And after finishing bottom of League 2 last season, Morecambe are reportedly facing extinction over a takeover which has stalled. Punjab Warriors Sports had been in negotiation to purchase the club from owner Jason Whittingham before he claimed on Friday that he, in fact, was selling it to somebody else. Let's speak to Graham House, who's the former Morecambe chairman. We've been following this story for a long time now. We've had Jason on this programme probably 18 months ago now. But what is going on here? Is there a serious prospect of Morecambe Football Club ceasing to exist?
Absolutely, and it's a good question. What is going on? Because we can't understand what's happened in the last couple of weeks. We've been, as a board, playing okey-cokey in terms of being on the board, then not on the board, then back on again. There was a deal done with Punjab Warriors that was approved by the EFL just prior to the end of the, just after the end of the season, before their AGM. Everything was passed and approved. And then Jason's decided not to pass the shares over to them, and then has been essentially holding the club to ransom for a couple of weeks now and coming up with owners that we have no, or potential buyers that we have no information on, no knowledge of, and no, importantly, no funds have come into the football club.
How much contact or how much discussion is there with Jason Whittingham?
In terms of the ex-board and Mr. Whittingham, very little, because we don't act in a capacity as a board anymore. There's been communication with Punjab Warriors, communication with the National League, with the Shrimps Trust, but we are getting statements, as the fans do, as we did on Friday when he announced that there was a new potential buyer and that funds were going to come into the football club. They didn't arrive and still haven't arrived.
What's all this about? What's the reason for the club getting into this situation? Why have board members like yourself been on the board, then out of the board, coming to and from every couple of days? What's happening here? Who's caused it?
Well, what happened was, coming up to the end of June, we were under the impression that Punjab were going to take over the football club, and they had funds ready to put into the football club. to pay the wages and other transactions that were falling upon the football club. Because the deal wasn't signed off, those funds didn't come in, and with our fiduciary responsibilities as a board, we couldn't continue to act as responsible directors, and we put the option to Jason to either sign the deal or we would have to put it into administration, something that we didn't want to do. He then messed us around and we felt obliged to remove ourselves from the board. Then we were told that he was prepared to accept the deal and that could we come back onto the board, which we all did. Then he went silent on us over the weekends that we were made this offer. So then on the Monday morning, we had no choice again but to remove ourselves from the board. We'll happily go back again to approve any deal and to sign any paperwork. In the meantime, we can't responsibly put ourselves in a position of acting for a football club, a company that's knowingly trading insolvently.
Graham, it just sounds to me, I was at Bury when the similar situation happened, and the Football League were clear, they knew what was going on, and it was obvious to people around there that the owner wasn't looking at the supporters and fans and everything. He was very I thought he was really selfish, and it ended up going bust. Do you see a similar situation?
Well, I do, to be honest. We're all trying every possible angle to keep the football club alive. The MPs got involved. The Shrimps Trust have been absolutely brilliant on this, the supporters, all the local community. But it's heartbreaking to see a club that's been around for over 100 years facing oblivion, to be honest. And yet I was involved at the club when the situation was going on at Bury and at Macclesfield, and met with some of the supporters at Bury when I think we were playing at Oldham around the time. And yes, we're in a very much a similar position, and it just the impact that it's going to have on the local community is devastating. The businesses that are impacted, the staff. There's over 200 people employed by Morecambe Football Club who haven't been paid now. They only got a third of the wages for June, and the football club are now approaching another payday with no means to pay anybody.
Not an easy carry on, is it?
I mean, I understand the idea of your fiduciary responsibility as a board, but what is the owner's suggestion? Because obviously he owns the business. He has an inherent value of it to some extent, I would gather. So what is it he's trying to achieve by not taking the offers that are currently on the table?
Well, there are two possibilities, I suppose, that he may have obligations that possibly mean him losing his house or assets that belong to him. The other option that we think is more likely is that he's trying to garner more money from somebody else or push the ante up with Punjab Warriors. But either way, it's more money into his bank account.
He released a statement via the official website 2.5 days ago, in which he said an announcement had been planned for this afternoon at that time, but due to false speculation about the buyer's identity, we've received consent to disclose his identity now. And it's all about basically saying that I think there was speculation that he was selling it to himself or selling it to another part of his own business, and then actually he's revealed the name of Johnny Cato in order to sort of suggest that this is a legitimate possible alternative to the Punjab Warriors. Is that how you understood it?
Well, we're not aware of him trying to sell it to himself or to any other companies that he's involved in. We could well believe that he may try and sell it to another individual. But I'd ask the question, why would he want to do that when there's a deal on the table that's been signed, pretty much signed off, approved by the EFL, passed all their tests? Why would you go looking for another option at this such a late day?
You know the fella, so you must have an answer to that, mustn't you?
So, well, obviously I don't know him well enough to know what the answer to that question is. If I think personally he's looking to get more money out of somebody.
Right. So, how much has he invested money in this football club? How much does the football club owe him?
Well, he's got a loan in the football club of well over $1.5 million, which we believe that money has come from Punjab Warriors through him into the football club. They've also invested in the football club something in the order of $1.5 million during the last year or so. to help finance the football club on the understanding that they were going to buy the thing.
There's something else here, and I remember this from last year. Wasn't he involved in another sporting entity that had an issue?
He was involved in Worcester Warriors, who went.
They've gone bust
shortly after COVID. Yeah.
And
now he bought Morecambe Football Club just before he bought Worcester Warriors, I believe.
Right. And he came on this programme, I remember, he must be about 18 months ago now, and this same sort of situation was going on then, or there was complaints that there wasn't enough players at that stage. So what I don't get is why he wouldn't have sold it prior to this, and why we're almost in a situation where this club has been running to the ground. That the pre-season friendly against Barrow has been cancelled. They've got 9 players on the book. They've been relegated to the National League. I mean, the general idea is there's 4 potential outcomes here now. It's that he sells the club to Punjab, he sells the club to this other consortium run by Johnny Cato, or a creditor puts it into administration. Of course, the worst option is the National League expelling Morecambe. All of those 4 things, though, are possible at this stage. Is that right?
Absolutely, but as we understand it, the National League are doing everything in their power to make sure Morecambe Football Club survives, but within the rules. They don't have the infrastructure, unfortunately, that the EFL have, but we've appreciated what they've been trying to do. Yes, this thing's been rumbling on for the best part of 2 years now, but Punjab have been involved for well over a year now, and have taken time to consider the football club, put money into the football club, and tried to help it survive with a view to taking over. So I don't, like everybody else, I don't understand why he won't take the deal, sign the shares over, and move on and allow the football club to continue.
Very strange. Listen, Graham, thank you very much for coming on the programme. Appreciate it. And look, we'll try and do a little bit more digging, because I know somewhere we have got his number, so we will try and find out. Maybe we'll do that on the show tomorrow. Good luck to Morecambe, because their fans don't deserve to go out of business, that is for sure. You're listening to Matterface, Jordan and Warnock. We're on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at silcobw.com. You're listening to talkSPORT. Coldplay are back at Wembley this summer, and we've got a huge VIP prize up for grabs for one lucky listener. We're giving you the chance to win 6 tickets in a private box for you and your mates. August 22nd it is. Full hospitality is available. We're chucking in 10 grand spending money as well, completely tax-free. If you want to enter, it's an 18-plus competition, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For your chance to win, text the word WIN to 83338. 4th of August is the deadline, 11 p.m, and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network message. You must have the bill player's permission, and your name or number can be posted to Coldplay Competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO28GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 7th of August. It's a talkSPORT limited promotion run by talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations, and full T's and C's are available at talksport.com. You started a social media trend, by the way, that Coldplay thing, the kiss cam thing that we were talking about earlier. Now, people obviously now at the concerts, when they do the kiss cam, everyone's in trying to do something that sort of replicates what those people did on the other night. It's brilliant. It's
It'll cut down the audience now. There'll be nobody going.
We've got a few changes to the laws that have been proposed. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on this one. We talked about this on Friday, and I still can't work out the benefit of this. But the prospective law change from not this season that's coming, the one after that, will be that there will be no more penalty rebounds allowed. Once the penalty is taken, play ends. No follow-ups are allowed. Goal or miss, that's it. Why would you do that?
That'll do me. I'm happy with that.
Are you? Why?
Yeah, I am. Why not? It'll get on with it straight away if they don't score.
But do you remember the great Troy Deeney goal where, the penalty at one end and then you run at the other end and score? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. And score. That will now be a thing of the past. That will never happen again. No. Those moments where the keeper makes a great save and then you counter-attack.
Is there any text behind why they think it's a good thing to do?
No.
The Troy Deeney is something that you can remember because it's happened so infrequently. So the fact that has happened once doesn't necessarily mean it should be preserved and set in stone. But
what about the chance that you could, if you miss the penalty or the goalkeeper makes a great save or whatever, you get the chance to put it in again?
But then again, a penalty should be, in my view, it should be a one-hit deal. You get your chance to have a penalty, you get a free shot on goal, and it either gets saved or you score.
I agree, Sam.
Really?
Yeah. I just think that's a good thing, mate.
Is that because you've been at clubs that concede a lot of penalties here?
No. Is what?
Is it because you've conceded a lot of penalties?
No, I suppose I've conceded more than I've gained. But no, I just think like Simon just said, you've got one go at it.
Right, so you think it's an unfair advantage if you have two goals?
If the goalie saves, it's great, well done.
That should be the end of it.
But they should be more vigilant about goalie moving his feet. If the goalie moved his feet,
we almost had a disaster on Saturday night about that because the German goalkeeper Ann-Katrin Berger makes a save to win the shootout, and they all celebrate. They all run onto the pitch, and I'm wrapping up the game, and I'm looking over, and the referee's doing this VAR in the ear to see if she's come off the line, and I'm thinking she's going to blow a whistle and disallow the goal. We're going to have to go again here. She didn't, thankfully, because it would have ruined. I don't know how to get everyone off the pitch, but that obviously is something that they're doing with the semi-automated.
Imagine if that happened.
Oh my God!
And they're all celebrating. I mean, that's hard to get back into the groove again.
Well, we had it in the Madrid derby in the Champions League last 16 game where nobody knew what had happened. They chalked off a penalty because Julian Alvarez had double tapped it before it had gone in the top corner. Yeah. And they'd called the penalty off. They didn't get to retake it again. That was it. It was just it was an X on the sheet. But no one in the stadium knew that until it came up on the scoreboard. So the goal had been disallowed, and only the Real Madrid players actually knew anything about it. Wow. It was shocking. That was weird. Other law changes: VAR to check second yellow cards, could intervene on yellows that lead to a red, which is currently not allowed, and may check corners if an incorrect decision has been made that led to a goal. What do you think?
So will we be getting IT to actually authorise the tossing of the coin before the start of the game? It's bloody ridiculous, isn't it?
Too much for you?
Yeah, because it's corners and that. Oh, my goodness me. Why don't we go back to just having a go at the referees like I used to enjoy, making a mistake, VAR and all that lot. By all means, goal line technology, but I'm not a big fan of things. Keep coming and coming and coming. Corner kicks and things like that. What are they going to do then, the lines people?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because the other law changes this year are the things like double touches on penalties, which we were talking about with Ian Alvarez. Now that actually it'll be retaken. It won't just be ruled out now. I think that's good. Yeah. Because a lot of that happens when it's accidental. It's a slip
thing. Do you accept the principle that it's very difficult to referee a football match, given the scrutiny that referees now put under, given the fact that the broadcasters have this 360-degree access, that means that decisions, whether you see them at the time or you see them retrospectively, are constantly being criticised by you managers?
Yeah.
So do you think it's technology that is not being deployed properly that needs to be improved, or it's technology full stop that you don't want? Because you weren't happy with referees.
No.
And you weren't happy with the mistakes they made.
No.
And you and your colleagues constantly were going on and on about it. So they brought in the technology to help referees to give you a greater outcome than the one you were before. So is it the technology you don't like, or is it the current deployment of it?
I just don't think we're good enough to do the technology. I don't think VAR people are good enough. I think it's just the same like referees that aren't good enough in the Premier League doing this VAR. Who aren't good enough.
Well, then that leads itself to the automated process where it takes out human error. So the offside rule, once upon a time you have to evaluate what is the purpose of an offside rule, why was it invented in the first place, and how does it adapt to the modern game? But ultimately, if you automate things, you take away human error.
Yeah.
Well, do you? You take away a human error, yeah, but do you take away error? After watching Wimbledon, I'm not 100% sure.
I'm just saying that, I'm going to just say.
Well, it depends what you've been led to believe. If the thing that people keep judging VAR by is that there was 100% clear-up rates.
No, it can never be for that.
But Sam, can you remember when you scored a goal and you run down the touchline and thump the air, jump the air, come back, give your assistant a kiss and all that, and now, what do you do now?
You know, we're all sitting there screaming away saying that's a goal, that's the end of the game or whatever, and then you actually think, oh, hold on a second, it might not be. I'll check to see if it's VAR, and it does take that out. But the game wanted it. The reason that it was brought in.
I wanted it because I got done at Cardiff with a goal offside.
Yeah.
At Cardiff, which I thought got us relegated.
You were asking for it at the time.
Absolutely. If Ed Smart, I remember his name now, the linesman, it's engraved in my brain. If he couldn't see you were offside, so I wanted VAR for that reason. But
you changed your mind now.
Well, I think for the goal, celebrating a goal and that have you, I didn't realise you'd lose as much enjoyment as we do. And I think you should just say the offside rule is if it's going to be done black and white straight away, then fair enough. But that's all. I don't think they should bring other things in like corner kicks and things like that. No,
the other problem is the law book. When you did your referee exams, how thick was it?
It was quite thick, but the one thing that didn't say in the law book when I started refereeing, when I watched my dad, I went to a game last week, Sheffield Club versus Retford at Retford, and I remember as a young boy going to watch my dad referee at Retford Town, right? And I remember him saying, talking to players and I'm looking at Keith Hackett when he refereed, and what they're told to do now is by the laws of the game they have to do all the laws, but they forget about man management. There's nothing wrong with talking to players, but it's almost like they're not allowed to now unless they get a mark taken off the flaming numbers, whatever they call. They've got to get back to talking.
Well, they can talk to the captains now, which is good. It's all about the captain's law, so if you want to have a chat with the referee, you better be the captain next season. Thanks for talking to us. You'll be talking to Jamie O'Hara tomorrow.
That's early doors, 6 o'clock up, and
that'll be a meeting of the minds. Then, won't it?
Well, I wanted to go on the programme while I'm in for a couple of days. I wanted to go on with somebody articulate, and I thought I'm not seeing anybody here today articulate, so I'll go on with Jamie O'Hara tomorrow.
Indeed.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow.
You will.
Looking forward to it. We're back tomorrow. H&J next.